The date is January 14, 2013. The time is 6:31 p.m. Jim Freeman,
Here.
Ed Nason, Clifton Camp, Steve Michaelski,
Here.
Rob Collins,
Here.
Ed Comeau,
Here.
Rick Surrette,
Present.
Gary Ciccarone.
Here. Thank you. No mail or correspondence this evening. Any significant announcements? We're going to review and deliberate the two warrant articles for the ballot tonight after our review and approval of the minutes. So let's do that first. Let's start with the January 7th minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
Now, we're going to do the planning board public hearing minutes for, excuse me, they're both January 7th. One's the meeting, one's the hearing.
Special meeting.
No,
We're
no.
doing the hearing first.
Public hearing.
Public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I have him down as absent. I have him down as absent, so I made a mistake there.
What's this?
That should be deleted, and I have him down as absent by accident.
I see.
Rick Surrette
And number
was
two.
tardy.
George has Vice Chairman Rick Surrette listed as selectman and absent by accident. It was a computer glitch, so we're going to have to amend that. I move to remove that from the minutes. Do you second?
D, second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Chairman, I move,
Abstention? Let's remove that.
Chairman, I move that we put Rick Surrette back in as tardy.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Do it. Party would be sure. Okay. I went through that, I didn't see that. Good call.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the public hearing minutes for Monday, January 7th, 2013, as amended. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? So be it, the minutes are approved. Okay, let's go through
Mr. Chairman.
the minutes for the
Good.
meeting.
George.
very good, George. I'm so used to you filling in. Okay. Who's MIA tonight?
Yeah,
Yeah, but he can't participate. He can't. Yeah, so you're alternate, so you're welcome to stay there. You just can't participate until we appoint you.
so we need a second for that.
Second.
I'm sorry, what was the motion?
It was your motion to accept as amended.
The meeting minutes for the 7th.
Mr. Chairman,
We didn't do that.
no, Rob, yeah. Rob Collins made the motion to accept them as amended. Ed Comeau seconded, which,
He can't do
He
it.
can't.
Okay, I'll second it. Let's get it over with.
okay, and you may want to call the vote over again. You may want to call the vote.
Yeah. Read it.
Rob Collins made a motion to accept the minutes, the January 7th public hearing minutes as amended, seconded by Gary Ciccarone.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Now they're approved. Now we can put them in a official docket. Whatever. Let's do the rest of the meeting minutes. I've already been through this. Anybody else need any more time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
I'll move to accept the meeting minutes of January 7th as written.
Anyone?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that's good. That's okay. Okay. We're gonna do the FEMA proposal for a warrant article. I move that the proposed changes directed by FEMA be placed on the ballot at the town meeting for this year, March, what day is it? 12th.
Second.
Anybody want to talk about it?
Pretty much cut and dry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Now we come to the juicy part. The motion passes. Number 7, deliberation of the citizen's proposal to a warrant article. Now,
Rick, I am in a bar.
you are in a butter?
Yeah.
So you need to recuse yourself, right?
From everything,
Yeah, from the discussion, everything.
so I move for that.
Yeah, you should go out there.
All right,
As an abutter, you must do that.
so do I have to make a motion that state I'm in a butter?
No, you just have to recuse yourself.
Ask the chair for recusal, permission to recuse yourself.
Permission for recusal?
You have
I
permission.
am in a butter.
Okay, would you sit in for Rick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jim, you got a spot on the big table.
Yeah, just keep your seat. Okay, there are some people here that signed a petition for this.
Are we going to appoint somebody to?
Pardon me?
We're going to appoint somebody to replace?
He already
Oh, I
did.
didn't.
I already
Oh,
did.
okay, sorry.
Where was I?
Petition signers.
Oh, yeah, let's get that cleared up right away. There are people that signed a petition here, and to the best advice of the town attorney, they really should not participate in this discussion. and they should abstain from voting on this deliberation process. And only one of them is left here. That'd be you. That'd be you. So, the rest of us, let's deliberate. I'm sure everybody's got some thoughts.
I believe, Mr. Freeman?
And, oh, yeah, and you didn't sign, but you are respectfully asked.
Because of my comments at the public hearing.
You can, to not participate in the discussion because of your comments at the hearing, correct? Okay, that is, so, thanks, Rob. So, that leaves four of us here that have opinions, and let's discuss it.
So did you, I'm sorry, did you talk to, just I guess point of order, did you talk to the town attorney about at the end of this, we're going to come up with a motion?
We're going to have a roll call vote. Yes, I did.
On a motion?
No. No motion is required.
Okay.
We're going to have a roll call vote. The four of us are going to vote.
Okay. And if there's four of us, if there were a tie, what's the implication of that?
Well, the implication is that the planning board cannot recommend this if there is a tie.
Okay, so the
Simply because there is no way to recommend with a tie. Recommend requires a majority. And we can neither recommend nor not recommend. Well, we're not recommending that this get voted by the townspeople, voted in as an amendment to the zoning on the ballot. So anyway, that's the deal. But we'll see where we go after all this discussion and deliberation. If that situation presents itself, then we'll deal with it. It hasn't presented itself yet, so let's discuss it.
I'll begin.
Go ahead.
If the New Hampshire Constitution Article 2 protects private property, the issue here is protection of private property. Now, on one hand, you have Chuck Robbins owning a piece of property, and he wishes to do something with it. Then you have abutters and people who live in the area that may feel that it's going to affect their private property rights. So what we have to do is balance that somehow. But our Constitution is specific to protecting individual rights. Now, if we have confidence in our site plan review, we should recommend this. If we don't, we should not recommend it. And that's how I want to start the conversation.
Anybody else? I mean, I've got a few thoughts on it too. Agreed to a point. But there's an awful lot of things here. There's no predicting the future. This is simply a motion to change zoning in a particular place in town. It's going to affect people, it's going to affect the town. Whether it's a deleterious effect or it isn't a deleterious, we don't know that. Nobody can predict the future. Consequently, we cannot either, as a board. We can subjectively, just like anybody else with an opinion, come up with a possible effect it's going to have on the town, but nobody knows. I mean, we've heard a lot of stuff about water quality and thousands of cabins and increased cost of services in Wakefield, which may or may not happen. But we don't even know how many cabins could be put there. However, we do have the right to limit that based on all sorts of parameters. But we're not discussing that here. We're just discussing a zoning change. Anybody else want to contribute to this?
I'd like to agree with Mr. Comeau. Ed. Primarily, I think for the planning board to make a decision, yes or no, to put this on a ballot, first of all, I don't think the planning board should be neutral.
Can I interrupt? It's already on the ballot.
All right, it's on the ballot, but by agreeing with it or disagreeing with it, the planning board should be neutral. My feeling on it is that it's ultimately up to the citizens of Brookfield to determine whether or not this gets voted in or not. Whatever the planning board puts in on it in the way of approval or disapproval for what they think about. And like I said, it should be neutral for the planning board, and it should be up to the voters of the town to determine whether or not this gets put through. And if it does pass, then it's up to the site plan review to continue on and determine whether or not, or determine the extent of the development and the type of development to be carried on. But right now, it's just a matter of a zoning change. It's not a matter of development that we have to discuss. So I think that's where my opinion is.
Mr. Chairman?
Hmm?
So, I like the fact that we're discussing this in an open way. I really appreciate Ed bringing in the Constitution and property rights, because that's really at the heart of the matter. We're talking about zoning, it's a zoning change. Zoning is all about exchanging some of your property rights for some of your neighbor's property rights. Because we live in a town that has a zoning ordinance, the whole idea is that we're agreeing to not do certain things in exchange for agreement from our neighbors to not do certain things. And our town mostly is always, we have two zones in town. And we have slight variations in various parts of the town as far as like workforce housing and things like that. But in general, everyone in town is subject to the same rules. And I disagree with Ed's conclusion a little bit, I think, because I don't think that just because our state guarantees property rights, and I personally think property rights are very important, I don't think that means that we need to support any and all changes to the zoning. Because what's happening here is that we've got one property owner asking his neighbors to allow him to do things that they may or may not want him to do. It's going to affect their property and their use of their property. And what are they getting in exchange for that? Right, that's the way I look at it, is how is this fair for them? And I'm not sure that it's particularly fair for them in this case. I think that, Mr. Robbins could have written it as changing the zoning through the whole town. That would have been really fair, right? Because then everyone would be able to do this, camping resort thing, for better or worse, right? That would at least be fair in that sense, right? We wouldn't be asking some property owners to be giving up some of their rights and not getting anything in return. Now, we all could have the potential for getting a town beach. It's not guaranteed. It's a permitted use on this, in this new zone, if this were to pass. So that, that balances it, that offsets it a little bit, maybe. Anyway, I guess it's more of a philosophical discussion rather than getting to the meat of deliberations on whether we should approve it or not approve it. Addressing Steve's point that we should be neutral, the legislature has given us a statutory obligation to recommend or not recommend. I think that our obligation under the RSAs is to, for better or worse, deliberate and try to come to a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this. And it might very well be that our vote as planning board members might be different than our vote would be as when we go to the ballot and fill out our own personal ballot. Because we're really determining different things. One is your personal opinion on what you think is the right way to vote versus as a taxpayer, as a property owner in this town. And here at the planning board, we're voting as planning board members, which might lead to the same vote or might lead to a different vote. In terms of how I look at this, I think that this, well, backing up a little bit. So, in order to be legal, our zoning has to be aligned with our master plan. We cannot change the zoning ordinance in a way that is badly contrary to what the master plan says. The proper procedure would be change the master plan, because you're changing the direction we want the town to go in, and follow that up with zoning changes. Mr. Robbins did point out that in our master plan and in the surveys that were done as part of our master plan, town beach and lake access has been a consistent thing that people have wanted, and that's true. And this would create the possibility for that. On the other hand, the master plan is very clear in preferring little development on our shorelines. And in fact, it specifically says that we should limit the development to single-family homes. And that's contrary to, the proposal is contrary to that provision, and that is clearly stated in a couple different places. Another theme that runs through the master plan is maintaining the rural environment that we've got here. And I'm not sure that a campground resort is well aligned with that goal. Because of those reasons, I would lean against recommending this. My current leaning is to not recommend. I'd be interested in hearing other people's thoughts on those things. Because, I guess I'd say I'm still persuaded, but at this point, I'm sort of leaning against this as being a good thing for the town.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I think about this. Strictly, in the strictest sense of the word, we're sitting here determining an ordinance to change a piece of property in town from one zone to another. There's been various arguments about whether it's spot zoning or not spot zoning, different opinions by different attorneys, and any one of those opinions can be adjudicated, and that's the only way a real decision is going to come about. Some of these issues are moot. They don't belong in this conversation. What may happen, who knows? Yes, statutorily, we are obligated to recommend or not recommend. However, I think a good deal that's wrong with this country and our political system at the moment is the fact that, well, I vote for representatives, I don't vote for leaders. And I vote for them based on the fact that I want them to represent my interests or my philosophical beliefs. And that's what I send them to Washington for. They're elected officials. We're elected officials. I'm of the opinion that, and statutorily, yes, we are obligated to make a decision and recommend something or not, but I believe just the opposite should be required, as opposed to the people looking to the planning board, whose basic function is to run things like site plan review. We're the legislative body in town. It is not something we should be doing to the people. We are going to tell you guys what to do because we're the planning board and we're the knowledgeable people, and consequently, this is how you should think. What we need to do, or what our function should be, is the people should tell us what they want, because whatever we create legislatively, they are going to be the people that bear up under it, whatever it is. I think it's the opposite of what's going on everywhere I look. That's the way it should be. That doesn't say I'm for or against it. However, that sets up this particular thought that anything we recommend or don't recommend to people in this town consists of an opinion. Now, when we do a site plan review, we do studies, we get experts insofar as they're required to make a decision on what we want to limit or not allow in town. This particular thing, there's nothing we're going to limit or allow or disallow. We're going to either approve a zoning change or not approve a zoning change. And we can't say that our opinion as to what the ramifications to the town are any more valid than all of the other people in this town that have a brain. Unfortunately, a good percentage of people go to the polls and vote. I don't know what it is, I can't, but we all know it's true. And they look at the ballot and they see planning board recommends or does not recommend, and they vote accordingly, because they're not tuned in to what the issues are. And I think that's a tragedy, and I think it's time people strapped on their thinking caps, because it's really up to them. And our opinions are no more valid than each and every one of their opinion in this particular instance. It may be in a more objective situation, but this is very subjective. It's, how do you feel it's gonna affect the town? I don't have any idea at all. I have my inclinations. I think that lots of things could happen that aren't too great. And maybe I'm right, and maybe some good things will happen. The future tells us exactly what's gonna happen, and we can't see it. I like the neutral position in the instant like this, even though the legislature isn't allowing us that luxury. Because who am I to tell everybody else how they should think, how they should act, and how they should vote? Because that's exactly what I'm doing, and I know I should say that everybody has the ability to think for themselves, but they all don't. I feel this is going to be very heavily lobbied anyway, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of misinformed people in this town by the time town meeting day comes. But for me to offer my opinion as planning board chairman or a member of a planning board, telling everyone how they should think about this and what they should do, I think that's a non sequitur. I don't think it makes any sense. We're not doing the town a favor. Perhaps we are in some kind of way. We're alleviating the responsibility of people to think for themselves. And that's, I think, is the biggest problem we have in this country. Locally, nationally, that's representative government. And it does apply here. When it comes to the other functions of this board, we absolutely have the right to conduct this board in an authoritative fashion so that we tell the people that we are protecting them against certain types of development. There has been no development proposed here. Am I in agreement with this? I think it's very possibly could have deleterious effects to the town. But I can't prove it, and I don't know for sure. And it might be good for the town. I refuse to tell anybody what to do. However, we will either recommend or not recommend this because the statutes require that. That's my opinion of the whole thing. But anybody else wants to weigh in on this? Oh, Cliff, you weren't aware, I'm going to tell you, I'm asking you to please, you can sit in the meeting, but you really should abstain from voting. That's the advice of the town attorney, because there are people that, it really, what it winds up being is lawsuit fodder. We've been through it once, we don't need it anymore, and I'm sure everybody agrees with that, so. Anyway, anybody else? I'm long-winded, I'm sorry. Hear from anybody that's willing to deliberate.
That's all there is.
So, Mr. Chairman, just a thought related to what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm philosophically, I like what you're saying. I think people should think for themselves. But, and the good news is we don't have to make the final decision. All we're deciding is whether or not there's a sentence that says recommends or doesn't recommend.
Correct.
On the ballot, right? That's all we're deciding.
Yep.
People still have to vote on this. We're not the representatives on the voting. It's actually a democratic process here.
That's right.
So that's good. I think that there are cases where the planning board would clearly want to not recommend something. If it were just really badly written, right, it would totally screw up our zoning ordinance. It would be, bad for a whole bunch of, just for,
Hypothetically, we're not talking about that here.
Right. And my comment would be that in this case, it's not clear that way. It's reasonably well written as far as zoning goes. It's not ill-formed, it's not, you can agree or disagree with what's there, but it's not, if this passed and it gets incorporated in our zoning, 10 years from now, people aren't gonna be like, oh my gosh, what idiot wrote that? It's reasonable to put it in zoning, right? I don't think that that's the case here, right? And I think that, if that were the case, it'd be clear that we would want to not recommend for those sort of structural reasons. And I don't think we have any of those issues here. I think the structurally this is reasonable, right? So, in that sense, I could, maybe I don't know what the legislature intended for us in terms of recommending or not recommending. If they meant to give us a voice in saying this is terrible zoning, as opposed to we may not like it what it says, right? That's it's two sort of different things. In this case, I don't think this is terrible zoning. We may not we may or may not think it's good for the town, or for, you know, the neighbors there, or whatever, but, I mean, this is not badly written in that sense, so.
That was my thought. I mean, when people write laws, whether it's us or somebody in the legislature, they can't cover all the bases. They do the best they can to come up with something that makes sense and fits the bill most of the time. The law of recommendation or non-recommendation may be precisely for that reason, to get rid of the bad zoning, badly written stuff, planning board, as opposed to something that's well-written, but may or may not be good for the town in a very subtle way, except for this is very subjective, the decision to whether or not we want this in town. There's some people that are gonna say we love it, and there's gonna be some people say that we hate it, and opinions are all just as valid as any opinion we might have, and no more important than any opinion we might have. That's my only point here. It is philosophical, but everything we do is philosophical implications as in this position, or as any voter would have. But anyway.
So, Mr. Chairman, one maybe final thought from me, that don't hold me up there.
Okay.
If we remain neutral, whatever that means, right? Let's say that
We can't.
Right, let's say we all abstain.
We could do that. I
It
suppose.
still goes on the ballot.
As not recommended.
As not recommended, and anyone who just goes and reads the ballot is gonna be the same exact, they're gonna have the same exact thing in front of them as if all of us voted against it.
That is not correct.
So, okay, so tell me what the difference is.
The difference is this, there is no statute that defines the statement at the end of the ballot made by the planning board. The planning board can say, this is not recommended because all members of the planning board abstained from the vote. That has an entirely different message than all the people on the planning board did not recommend. Not that that is a neutral position, it is still not a recommendation, but it is a much weaker not recommendation than all members of the board saying, we do not recommend this. So it all depends on the approach this board wants to take. We aren't at that particular juncture right here, we're still talking.
So how do we decide what that wording is?
Well, we do it through the motion process, and there are no statutes that govern it except that you can't tell lies, things like that. And you want to keep it short, succinct, and to the point. I mean, if you want to explain how the vote happened, it's perfectly legitimate and legal. In other words, what the vote was. You don't have to say it approves or disapproves. You legally can say it approves or disapproves by virtue of a tie, or how you want to word it that fits the bill and describes the act as it transpired, the act of voting. So you can do that. That's legal, and in no way misleads anyone. It just simply tells the truth. For all the people that don't want to get off their duff and come down here and participate, and it's too bad, because this is a pretty big deal here. I mean, look at all the people that are here. This is the biggest planning board meeting I've ever seen. No, that's not true. Cottage industry 4 years ago was bigger. But, you know, it's too bad a lot more people don't want to get involved. But and I'm sure there's a lot more people with opinions. I've had people call me up. And, you know, they have opinions, and I'm pretty non-committal because I'm in a position where, yeah, that's very interesting, and I don't know what the board's going to do. But I've had a dozen phone calls. Some people oppose, some people against. That doesn't sway me. I have my feelings on the subject. What I think could happen to this town, good or bad. And I'm going to vote that way at the town meeting. But as planning board chairman, I'm impartial. And I just want to do what I think is the right thing for the town based on what is presented in front of us. Not on what might or might not happen, because I have no knowledge of that. That's all I can say. After we talk this over, we are going to do a roll call vote, and that is the procedure. And we'll do whatever the planning board that has the ability to vote tonight from participation, we'll do whatever that vote consists of. How we word the sentence at the end has to do with the vote. We may not do any wording. You know, everything is relevant. So we're there. I mean, I wish everybody else wax eloquent. It's because, yeah,
This is really only a technical recommendation.
Yes,
It's not a philosophical recommendation.
Yep.
The recommendation is, do the land use laws we have now going to protect everyone the way it is, the way the zoning is being presented? I have a problem with, the amount of information we were given about the project, because that part of the technical aspect of it is a big void.
there is no project.
That's what I mean, so how do you actually technically recommend the zoning if we don't know what the details are?
That's a question, and it's a legitimate one, but it's not one we can answer for anybody. That's my whole point. The townspeople have to weigh what might come out of this versus what may, one way or the other, and make their decision on how they're gonna vote. And I'll be damned if I'm gonna say, I'm the guy in the planning board, I'm smarter than you, so I'm telling you how you're gonna do your thing by virtue of my little signature on the bottom of something. My opinion's no better than theirs. In an issue like this, that's precisely what's involved, because there's no plan. If there was a plan, I'm an engineer. If there was a plan in front of me, I could take it apart and put it back together again and tell people a whole bunch of facts about what this deal is. I can't tell anybody anything here, except what might happen, and that's, subjective, I think. Yeah.
Okay, let's be fair about this. With the details that we have about the project, no matter how little they are,
Mm-hmm.
could we recommend or not recommend with the information we have technically right now?
There's no project.
So what would the answer then be?
The answer is, we're not being asked to recommend the project. We're asking to recommend whether or not we approve of this zoning change in the town of Brookfield. All that other stuff is subjective, and they're valid reasons. I'm not saying that they're invalid. I'm not gonna argue any of those points with anybody, because the future is the future. The past I'll argue with, or argue about. So, all of us here, we all have to vote based on what we think might happen to the town if this comes to pass. I mean, look, I don't know Mr. Robbins. We're not personal friends. I've met him a few times, nice fellow. He could get hit by a 747 the day after the meeting, and somebody else has a whole different concept of what the heck's gonna go on down there. And that's the future, it's up for grabs. Do we wanna change zoning in town, or don't we wanna change zoning in town? The people have to decide that. And I'm perfectly willing to let them do it on their own, but they need to put the thinking caps on. There's gonna be a lot of people getting told a lot of stuff. They'll have plenty of food for this, intellectually, to figure this one out. However, we're gonna vote one way or the other tonight, and that's how we're gonna recommend or not. That's how I see it. Anybody else?
And just a comment related to like the fact that we don't know what the project would be, right?
Right.
I mean, imagine that a landowner petitioned to have the setbacks changed from 50 feet to 60 feet. Right, so zoning change, it's exactly the same situation. We go through the same process, we have a public hearing, we have to, recommend approval or not, and the people would get to vote on it on the ballot, right? And that's sort of easier to get your head wrapped around, but it's exactly the same situation. We're just changing what the wording of the zoning ordinance is, right? And if that was a little easier to get your head wrapped around, maybe, right? What's the implication of a setback change? Who knows what you still don't know what somebody's gonna do with that. Maybe a little easier to get your head wrapped around, but it's exactly the same situation. We don't need to know what any given project would be. We don't need, it's just somebody is gonna have some more permitted uses for their land if this passes. And what they do with those permitted uses, to Gary's point, only the future will tell, right? We just don't know, and it will, that's sort of the risk and benefit of changing the zoning.
Good.
Did the town, since I'm kind of new in town, did the town actually go out and vote to approve the master plan?
Frank can answer that one,
No, the
because you were involved when you did that.
We held hearings, and the town participated quite extensively through the survey system and stuff, but the master plan process is the planning board adopted the master plan.
Thank you. I'm not open to the floor for public comment tonight, I'm sorry, but thank you, Frank, I appreciate that. Answer the question I couldn't.
So the master plan, does it actually specifically say in there, no changing zones, or, no, it does not, does it?
No, it actually says in places, and I can't quote it exactly, but it does say that exploration should be done on perhaps a commercial zone in the future of some kind. Those things are there. That doesn't mean that the town's obligated to follow that and explore a commercial zone location in town. It's just a suggestion that it might be something the town wants to do in the future. There it again is, majority rule. That's what we're doing here. This whole thing is a majority rule thing. That people are gonna vote, and if they want another rec zone in town, evidently there'll be another rec zone in town. If they don't, there won't be. I'm just not the Oracle of Delphi, and I'm gonna sit back and use the position of authority that I have, which is kind of minor, to, I don't know, demagogue? Yes, do this. The planning board thinks this is a great idea or a bad idea. I don't. I have my personal opinion, that's it. I'll share that with anybody. That I don't have a problem, but not as chairman of the planning board or as the planning board spokesperson. I will not use that position to convince anyone on purpose. I mean, I have no choice. Legislatively, have to do that. I mean, I'll argue with them. That's it. Anyway.
Want to call the vote?
I will do that under this circumstance. If somebody says, we've got an engineering plan here, and this is good for the town, and I look at it, and the engineering is poor engineering, considering the fact that it just slid by the state, and because there are parameters that the state allows, but there are exceptions to what's going on in Brookfield, and the engineering is bad, then I can weigh in professionally. That's different. But only if I have expertise. If I'm just Joe Idiot, then I'm not gonna weigh in, except with my opinion, and it's unprofessional. Anyway,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
can you read the statute that tells us what the requirements are that we have to accomplish?
I've got it right there, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, read it.
So this is RSA 675:4, Roman numeral 3. Well, let me start with Roman numeral 2. We've already done this part of it, but Roman numeral 2 says, the planning board at its first regular meeting following the petition period shall set the date of the public hearing for each petitioned amendment which is received, and shall hold a public hearing on each petitioned amendment. Notice for the time and place of the public hearing shall be the same as that provided in RSA 675:7. Okay, so now we're getting closer to where we are. That's what we did last week. Okay, we had that public hearing. Okay, Roman numeral 3, each petitioned amendment shall be placed on a ballot, which may be separate from the ballot used to elect town or village district officers. Okay, so it's gonna be on the ballot, right? Okay, here's what we're doing tonight. A notation on the ballot stating the planning board's approval or disapproval shall immediately follow the question's description. And then it goes on, any petition question receiving an affirmative vote of a majority of the legal voters present and voting shall be adopted, except as provided in RSA 675:5. The planning board shall forward to the town or village district clerk all proposed amendments to a zoning ordinance, historic district ordinance, or building code under the section not later than blah, blah, blah. So tonight we are, quote, deciding a notation on the ballot stating the planning board's approval or disapproval.
Yes.
That's all the guidance we've got.
Yeah, that's it. And we're gonna do that, exactly. Only after we've discussed all this stuff and tossed all this philosophical stuff around, it really doesn't mean much, we're gonna vote. To
Well, Mr. Chairman.
recommend or not recommend.
Mr. Chairman, since we're really a technical board, this is really a technical decision. This is almost like we were hired to be a consultant on the building of a skyscraper. You may not like where it is. Aren't we just voting on the recommendation of, is this feasibility?
We are voting on whether or not we recommend that there be another recreational zone in the town of Brookfield and it be located where Mr. Robbins specified. That's exactly what we're voting on. There's other parts to this and things, but not an awful lot. That's basically the crux of it. It's really got nothing to do with any technicalities. Other than that, that's it. So Do we feel that that's a good idea for Brookfield personally? We all have that opinion. We're all gonna vote ourselves the way we feel in March. What we do here and now is another story, perhaps, perhaps not. But we're talking about it. So, we should all think about it. We don't actually have to vote tonight, but I think we might as well. The reason we don't have to vote tonight is because our vote, one way or the other, won't affect anybody in an adverse fashion. There are time limits on votes for certain things that could affect applicants, et cetera, but under these circumstances, we don't have to. We have to do it before town meeting and before the ballot is printed, but I think we should vote, but I think we should, I don't know, any other considerations? No?
Well, I think warrant articles are excellent. The fact that a town can come together and vote on something like this is exceptional.
You would never get it in Manchester, that's for sure.
That's why I'm assuming that this is more of a technical answer than a philosophical question. The philosophical question is up to the voters when they go to vote. We should just be telling them, you know, is this, I'm trying to, can somebody give me a good example of what would be a zoning change that we would completely not recommend? I mean, absolutely.
Maybe a commercial zone on one of those.
Industrial commercial zone.
Pardon me?
An industrial
Yeah,
commercial zone
yeah. That's
throughout
right.
the town.
Because the technical aspects of it wouldn't not only fit in with the town, but it wouldn't have the right facilities.
It would be against the master plan.
It would be, that's, but the key thing is it would be against the master plan.
That's right.
The master plan is supposed to guide all of our zoning changes.
Yep.
And if we want to change the direction of the growth in town and development in town, you start with updating the master plan.
Correct.
And that's where I get stuck on this, is that I see that it maybe forwards some things that are in the master plan, but it's diametrically opposed to other things in the master plan. That's sort of where in this decision-making process as part of this board, that's where I get stuck. If somebody let's say somebody brought this to the board, that would be the first thing that brought it to the board for, see if the board wanted to move this forward. That'd be the first thing we have to look at is this aligned with the master plan? If it's not, but we thought it was a good idea, you gotta change the master plan first. So I think that.
The
that's sort of my
possibilities
take.
may be diametrically opposed. The zoning change, because there's possibilities in everything. The zoning change itself is not necessarily opposed. If let's say he went uphill instead of down to the water, and he was gonna have snow tubing. We already got one of them in town. This is just a different recreational, kind of recreational zone. I'm not condoning it or supporting it, but it's nonetheless a recreational zone. We already got one. It's not so opposed to the master plan. What he does up there may very well become opposed to it, but he hasn't applied for anything. We haven't allowed him to do anything up there. To me, that's the issue here. We're consulting the master plan about something that may never happen or hasn't happened. Well, but I know it's possible.
So Gary, let's say that instead of proposing camping and cabins, he proposed heavy industrial on that land. It's in addition to residential agricultural, right? So he hasn't changed anything, but now,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
There's
You have
no,
someone
She's coaching him from the
influencing
floor.
one
Pardon
of
me?
the
I'm not
members.
coaching him from the floor, I'm showing him something in the master plan.
Let the record show that Selectman Camp was coaching one of the members from the floor.
George, put that in there.
Don't recuse yourself and sit back.
No, I'm not recusing
Is
myself,
that-
I just can't.
You are recused.
He's
No,
not,
I am not.
he is not recusing himself, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, Cliff.
That wasn't-
Asked to abstain.
Well, let me state again what he is, he is not allowed discussion, and you're not allowed discussion, Cliff.
That's not what you said, but all right,
Yeah, I did, I said
you just said I couldn't vote.
you couldn't vote and couldn't participate in the discussion. That was the attorney's recommendation.
Okay.
Recusal, only one person is required by law to recuse himself, and that's the abutter. That's the Surrette. So, okay. Let's not hand any more documents on. So,
So, Mr. Chairman,
Ed,
I have my own copy of the master plan here. Now,
where'd you get it?
with.
I just,
Okay.
it was a copy I brought with me, I handed it.
So, if you look at the master plan, since it doesn't specify you can or can't have a separate zone, and the townspeople haven't voted on that yet, we would have to not recommend it. Because of the master,
I don't understand the logic there.
well, because the master plan doesn't specify it can't be done, or it can be done, so just by the limited information, we can't, how do you, I'm still stuck on how do you recommend something with this limited information we have?
May I?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take a step.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, one of the pieces of the master plan, I can maybe find it in there, it's a short paragraph, basically says we want to limit development along our shorelines. Because they're, sensitive and whatever, right? Let's say that somebody wanted to change the zoning so that shoreland setbacks were, 10 feet more or less. You're not going something specific, but you can, it's like, does that setback change align itself with the desire to not have heavy development along our shorelines? That's the decision we'd be making. And if we were increasing setbacks, we might say, yeah, that is, setback from the wetlands or from the shoreline. You might say, yeah, that actually is aligned with it because it's helping keep development away. Or let's say that, the proposal was to eliminate setbacks from the water. Now, of course, the state law, it's hypothetical because the state law wouldn't allow that, but then we would look at it and say, well, no, that actually is encouraging development here, and it's directly the opposite of what our master plan wants to say, right? So it's really a question of, is the zoning change aligned with the goals, the development goals in the master plan? That's really, and you look in the master plan and it says people want access to the lake. That's clear, it's 10 places in there, right? And Mr. Robbins pointed that out. And it also says that, we should not do development along the shore, right? Or minimize the impact of development by keeping single-family homes. And, that's contrary to that part of it, right? So that's sort of the decision we have to make, is this aligned with master plan, and the desire to have town beach and desire to minimize development and impact along the shorelines. I think that, and it's, I don't think it's not like 2 + 2 is 4, it's not that straightforward.
There's another little piece of this too. Since we're discussing hypotheticals, this is contrary, all this other stuff on the other page is not part of the ordinance actually. Change. This is contrary to our funnel development restriction. And the town attorney asked me about that and said, how does this sit with your funnel development? So I faxed off a funnel development copy. And that right there, if the townspeople vote for this, that doesn't mean they're voting out funnel development restrictions. That has nothing to, one has nothing to do with the other. They could vote for this because they're asking for a zoning change, but there's no project submitted, so there is no funnel development change request as a either ZBA venue or an ordinance change. So there are restrictions to what can be done there, down there based on our funnel development ordinances.
Well, yeah, but,
I know, there's always a but.
well, somewhere in here, somewhere in here it says, so this is under, where are we, general, number 5, general, B, general conditions, item number 8.
Yeah, that's
Restriction on
true.
funnel development. All provisions regarding the restriction on funnel development shall be inapplicable to the recreational resort campground and town beach access zone.
Okay, yeah, that's
So,
part of it.
If
Town people vote on it, it may be.
if this goes in, the way I read it, that our funnel development prohibitions are not a factor during site plan review of any project that might be proposed there. Because there is no funnel development restriction in this proposed zone.
If that is,
That's just the way I
how did I
read it.
miss that? Let me go back.
On page, I got it on page number three.
Yeah,
Right above appendix F.
Okay, I'm buried here with it. It's down here. Okay. Okay, well, yes, that is a problem. Well, have we gone over this enough? Do you think?
I don't know.
We're all ready to do a vote?
You just brought up funnel development, we
Yep.
can discuss that as well. I mean, I would agree that this is, allowing funnel development there on the shoreline would be another thing that's contrary to our master plan. Master plan does state that we want to not have funnel development.
Well, the attorney said it would become a problem for them to develop, even with our funnel. But you see, attorneys get paid by time and service, so God only knows what that really means. I mean, I had a conversation with her and I talked about that. But I'm not going to issue a dogma statement legally because it's not my forte. But that would still be a problem. But I don't want to discuss it any further because I'm not an authority on that, and I don't want to banter and argue about that and how applicable it is, because I don't have any idea. But it could be a problem, yeah. But thanks for the hot tip. Appreciated. So, anybody else?
So I'll just, along that, I think, I would say along similar lines, the way I read this, during site plan review, there are some limitations on what the planning board would be able to do, at least the way I read it. And like you, I'm not a lawyer, but for instance, item under general conditions, item 6, number of sites. The number of sites allowed is going to be determined in accordance to septic and water supply rules and regulations, right? Which, the way I read it, let's say that you could design a septic system there that would handle 300 cabins. The way I read it is that we wouldn't be able to, during site plan review, decide to have less, that you could only have fewer than 300 cabins. Right, because that's not one of the things that would be determined by site plan review, it's determined by the zoning ordinance. So, and the setbacks are determined, it's not something that site plan review could, necessarily affect and things like that, so. Not that those things are inherently bad, it's the way it's written, and the people will vote yes or no on that, but, I mean, I don't feel like, when I read this, that just because we're gonna have site plan review, that we as a planning board are gonna have the ability to have complete control over the outcome of that project.
We won't have complete control.
And we're not
There's
gonna-
gonna be outside engineers that are gonna come in and tell us that they're conforming to state law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and we can't debate. For instance, when it comes to the water, that's the state's purview. We may have our own ordinances, and we have darn few of them that don't follow state, but the state will govern that. And we won't have anything to say about a lot of those things. We'll have things to say about traffic studies, road conditions, road quality, quantities of traffic. I've heard everybody on Tumble Down Dick does not want to see this. Because in their opinion, and they're possibly correct, there's going to be 200 cars a day pass and repass if 200 cabins are there. And that's why they moved here, because they didn't want 200 cars passing and repassing a day, and that's inherently going to be part of that. Because if you put something like that in there as a business venture, making it successful is your function. So if it's a successful business venture, and that's why there's going to be no 2,500 cabins, nobody would do that. It doesn't make any sense. But there might be 100. Which means there could be 200 passes and repasses. I mean, that's a legitimate issue, but we're still discussing what might happen. And the townspeople should vote their conscience. We are going to vote ours and recommend or not recommend. And if anybody else got any more, I've spewed enough BS here. I'm done. Everybody else is mute.
Call the vote.
Roll call vote. We are going to have a roll call vote.
So, Mr. Chairman, point of order, what are we voting approval, disapproval?
We are voting whether we approve, whether we wish to recommend this or not recommend it. And the vote is by roll call, where you will say whether you recommend it or don't recommend it. It's a legitimate way to do this.
Do we have to state why? And
No,
amend with it?
no, you don't. You've already said why you think the way you think or ask questions. You don't have to defend anything. You have the right to vote, and that's the end of that. And then we will accordingly place a line at the bottom of this article saying what we did or don't do. Do or don't do. Recommend or don't recommend. So, and I want this as a roll call vote, so there is a record for our own edification. Doesn't matter, everybody here is gonna know how we voted, because they're sitting in the room. But the rest of the townspeople might be interested in that, and we should give them that ability.
All of you two will say it.
Huh? Because, yeah, we have the Ed show, so
Big and bold.
forget about the Ed, I forget about that. I never watch it, I don't
More people to watch.
know. I know. George, would you call the vote, please?
Calling the vote excluding all those who have recused themselves
Or abstaining,
or
correct?
abstaining. Steve Michaelski?
I vote to approve because I believe the town should have the final vote, not the planning board.
Rob Collins?
Disapprove.
Ed Comeau?
With the limited information I have, I would have to not approve on those lines.
Gary Ciccarone?
Considering the fact that there's one approval and two disapprovals, I vote to approve, and I vote to approve, and I now make a motion that we stipulate that the planning board does not recommend this development based on the fact there were 2 votes for recommendation and 2 votes against recommendation.
Could you read that back, George?
Yes. There was a, Chairman Gary Ciccarone made a motion that the planning board not recommend the warrant article based on that there were 2 votes for and 2 votes against
Recommending.
recommending.
Second.
Any other discussion?
What would the annotated line say?
The planning board does not recommend voting for this warrant article, this ballot, or this article on the ballot, based on the fact there were 2 votes for and 2 votes against recommendation. That's how it will be stipulated. You have that noted?
We have a second, but we don't, we need.
Yeah, we're gonna go there. I'm just making sure everybody's
Yes.
got the. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Do we have any abstentions? Do we have any abstentions?
Well, you said you couldn't vote.
Yeah, they're not voting.
Well, no.
No,
You
we're
can
Call it
vote.
If you're gonna call the name and
You
then
have
call the
to.
name.
That's right, so we'll leave it at that. You abstain, you're not recused because we still have a quorum anyway, so it doesn't matter. That is the end of the story. The planning board has,
Could you clarify the outcome of that vote, just to make sure it's clear to everybody?
the planning board does not recommend.
I'm sorry, there was a motion. Was the motion passed or not?
The motion is passed.
Thank you.
I said, so be it.
Yeah.
Right, I just want to make sure that it's clear. to
The
everybody.
motion is passed.
I got it because I was sitting here, but.
Okay, the motion has passed.
Andrew, would you read that motion for us, please?
Yes, sir. I will be happy to do that. George, would you read the motion?
Yes. Gary Ciccarone made a motion, the planning board not recommend the warrant article on the basis that the...
On the ballot, the article on the ballot.
Article on the ballot, excuse me. Based on the 2 votes for and 2 votes against from the planning board.
Mr. Chairman, I think you have to get that clarified by the attorney.
I already got it clarified by the attorney.
Okay?
Done. Two of them, in fact.
I'm questioning the wording.
No, the wording is fine. There's no statutory obligation to the wording. We can add a few phrases, but we must either recommend or not recommend. That's the crux of it. We absolutely can outline how or why. We have that right and ability.
So, Mr. Chairman.
And I will say to all you members of the board, had you voted for it, and you voted for it, and you voted against it, I would vote against it. Because I'm not predicting the future. I'm not making this, it's my attempt to have this planning board as neutral as possible. And it's a legal and permissible thing to do.
Well, you're supposed to be a tiebreaker anyway.
Well, if there'd been a tiebreaker, it would have been a different story. So, that's it. On to the next item on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. If you're going to bring Mr. Surrette back on, should make sure that's noted in the minutes.
I am going to bring Mr. Surrette back on. I'm looking for my agenda at the moment. It's over here hiding. Got it. Ed, you're retiring. Young age, but retiring.
Thank you.
Old business. Site plan review working document, let's get to that. We want to vote on that tonight because we have the ability to do so. It's really a housekeeping issue. And we have a request for that document by a citizen. And I said we would be voting on it tonight, and I'll get it to him. Bob Bordeaux is applying to the town for site plan review for disc golf. You know that? And I told him we'd give him our latest document, which is this. Okay. Site plan thing.
This one.
I got it here. There it is. Okay. Site plan review. Types of development requiring site plan review. Yeah, thank you for staying. Oh, yeah.
Thank you for at least staying. I mean, somebody.
We appreciate it.
Could you take a brief recess so I could talk to someone?
Yeah, sure. Are we all good to go? Rick?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Site plan.
Okay.
Still on site plan review.
site plan review regulations. Okay, here it is. We've gone over this. Do we want to read this into the record? I think we can all read it ourselves, but we have actually people out here tonight. So I'm going to read it for you folks in the audience. I wouldn't call it audience, but participants at the zoning meeting. Site plan review regulation for the town of Brookfield, New Hampshire. The title page isn't changing, so I'm not gonna read that. Regulation zoning ordinance, the word board shall mean Brookfield Planning Board. Article 5, types of development requiring site plan review. No plan approval should be required for one-family dwelling units. This is all part of our thing anyway. Agriculture is defined by RSA 2134A as associated accessory uses, and applicants shall obtain site plan approval from the board for the following types of building development. A, all new,
Principal buildings.
all new principal buildings and accessory buildings for non-residential use. B, additions of more than 1,000 square feet of floor area of such existing principal and accessory buildings. And C, any change in use of a site or existing building. That's our existing ordinance. It's there. What we have added to this is a minor site plan review, and it's strictly to, when applicable, to not put someone who has gone through the major site plan review process through some of the things that he should not be required to do if it has minimal impact. For instance, getting an entire new engineering package on water, et cetera. For instance, Bordeaux, or anybody else that does a project, that work is already done. He can reuse it, that work, and I'm going to read the 8 provisions of site plan review light. Where applicable, the planning board will attempt to expedite requests for site plan application by means of an expedited minor site plan review process. In order to qualify as a minor site plan, an application for development must comply with this criteria. 1, the purpose of the plan is for change of use or expansion of present use. The site plan will have a minimum traffic impact on surrounding road network. There is no alteration of access to public streets. Minimum lot rating. Minor drainage improvements are required to accommodate any increased drainage due to improvements. An increase of the floor area of up to 1,000 square feet. An addition of up to 2,000 square feet. Those items are already in our zoning. We're not beefing them up or knocking them down any. And number 8, there are no unusual or special conditions which require full planning board review. That's what we're going to propose. Oh, this is a housekeeping actually. And we're making this so that, for instance, some of our requests are description of surrounding houses, what their use is. It requires a great deal of investment by the applicant when that's already been done, perhaps a year ago. A change of ownership may have occurred. It's still the site plan review process. It would still be subject to public review at our site plan, our planning board meetings and the site plan review process. So anyway, I wanted to explain to the people that are sitting here what that was about. Anyway, we all know what it's about because we've been beating it around for a while to create it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on, I'm having trouble remembering what number 6 and number 7 together mean.
Increase of the floor area of up to 1,000 square feet.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, well because our additions of more than 1,000 square feet of floor area require a full site plan review according to our ordinances. We're not removing that. Because that kind of connotes that he's going to do something more grandiose. So
Somebody adds 500 square feet, then item 6 allows them to do minor.
minor, perhaps, depends on if 8 kicks in.
So what's number 7? 2,000 square feet of what?
The only thing that might be mentioned.
Wait a minute, yeah.
Is that the 2,000
No,
feet
no.
could include decking?
Increase, what is an addition of 2,000 square feet for,
paving?
George? Why is that in there?
We discussed paving.
Yeah.
Was that paving?
Yes, I think it's supposed to be
I
that.
believe it's supposed to be paved.
Paving, it's supposed to have the word paving in there.
Or impervious surface or something, or?
Yeah, impervious surface. Good catch.
Addition of up to 2,000 square feet, okay.
Of impervious surface. That's exactly what that is.
Okay. I was trying to remember, I knew we.
It was
talked about it.
impervious surface.
Okay.
That's a typo. I'm sure that's a typo.
That is what we discussed.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, one other, I think
We can pencil that in here.
another typo or just a formatting thing. Visually, it looks like minor site plan review because it's indented. It looks like it's under number C, letter C.
Okay.
My suggestion would be just change the typography so that it's left justified. Its left margin is even with the paragraph above.
Let me ask you this, George, refresh me on the procedural point here. If we, that's nothing but
That's
a
just
change in size.
That's just formatting.
That's just formatting, that's acceptable. And because we were all on the same page and someone neglected accidentally, it doesn't significantly change anything. So we can vote on this tonight and have George create the document, because we've already been through this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've got the whole board here present.
Yep.
And the rules in our rules of procedure that we make it so that we have 10 days of, notice and stuff like that. I mean, is this even part of our rules of procedure? Is that
No.
subject to that?
No, this is not.
Okay, so we can make changes and adopt
Yep,
them
it's
tonight.
housekeeping.
Okay.
George,
Yeah, those two.
make a note for those two items,
Yes, I have them.
and with those two items in mind, would someone like to make a motion as to whether we accept this and approve of it to become?
I would move that we accept the minor site plan review housekeeping document as amended. We approve it.
Any other discussion?
Just my clarification. It looks like we've got the minor site plan review verbiage in Article 5. We've got the addition of page 12, which is a signature page.
Yes,
That's an addition, right?
yes.
And then the appropriate change on the table of contents. That's the changes we're talking about. That's how this motion.
Right.
Thank you.
As we discussed, as we work it.
Just want to make sure that I understood the totality of the changes,
That-
and that all of those changes were part of the motion.
Yes, the table of contents one with minor site plan review, the formatting of the entire minor site plan reviews text, and the additional of pavement to be added to the end of the sentence in number 7.
And changing the left.
Or of
justified.
impermeable surface,
Impermeable.
impermeable surface.
So what about number 6?
Well, increase in the floor area of up to 1,000 square feet is acceptable because above 1,000 square feet kicks in site plan review.
To what buildings?
To any building.
Existing buildings?
Yes,
Could
an
that
addition
be-
automatically infers.
Could that be put on the end of that sentence?
I'm sorry, so you're proposing that if you're creating a new building of under 1,000 square feet, that you would have to go through full site plan review, not the minor site plan?
No.
No, you'd get a building permit.
Yeah, but if say he wants to build a 900 square foot shed,
Yeah.
that's not an existing building.
But this is an increase on existing buildings.
It doesn't say that, it says increase of the floor area
Of what?
of any building. Could be,
Of a new building?
yep, could be,
I would
or
say-
it could be an addition.
I would say it would read more like increase of 1,000 square feet of floor area on the property. Like
Floor
if you
area
put- If you
of-
put a shed that you're using
I'm
along.
having
in
trouble
conjunction.
computing that.
Oh, if you put it like the shed, 1,000
Yeah.
foot shed, that's adding to the available floor space that's used in conjunction with that building. I would say.
But
that
it'd be a
would-
separate building.
Yeah, even if it's a shed of that size.
It's less than 1,000, you just get a building permit.
All right, all right. I'm having trouble with that one, but I guess it's fine. If everybody else
So,
understands it, I don't.
I believe the intent was
Yeah,
for an
question.
addition to an existing building up to,
No.
I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
the 1,000.
So site plan review does not kick in, so reading A, B, and C, right? A, B, and C, A is any new building. B would be additions of up to over 1,000 square feet. So if somebody, if he had didn't have see his change of use, he didn't have any use, but he wanted to add 500 square feet to an existing building for an existing use.
That would be a minor site plan.
No, it's not, so.
It's a building permit,
Yeah, no site plan at all, the way I read this. Is
because
that
it's
right?
over 1,000 square feet. He has to add an addition over 1,000 square feet for site plan to be kicked in. Anything under 1,000, 999 and less is just a building permit, according to that document.
And a minor site
No, I
plan
don't think
review.
so. It says, this is what it says. Minor site plan review requires these criteria, and that's one of the criteria. Addition of up,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the issue is ignoring minor site plan review, right? That's just going to decide which, if site plan review is kicked in, now is it normal or is it minor, right?
Right.
But if it's kicking in, if the question, I think that some of us are confused on is, at what point does it kick in? And that's determined by A, B, and C. If that's, is that, this is
Right.
what I read it, right?
Yeah.
So, looking at just A, B, C, if it was an existing building, in addition to an existing building of 500 square feet, and no changes in use, the way I read that is no site plan review of either kind. Is that?
That's how,
And you think that any additional square feet footage should be kicking in site plan review? Is that right?
Again, I'm trying to rack my brain, this has been dragged out for so long, that what the intent was on that.
well, in the minor site plan review, increase the floor area up to 1,000 square feet. That means if it's
Yeah.
500 square feet, we can apply a minor site plan review.
No,
But if it's only 500, you wouldn't even need site plan review.
Yeah, but according to the minor site plan review, increase of area up to 1,000 square feet, which means it could be a foot. That's up to.
Right,
That
so you
would
could have
be in
changed
that-
use.
in the
and
purchase
added
range.
500 square feet, which would kick in
I'm
site plan
suspecting
review.
something's gotten left off from here,
yeah, something
and
good.
and it would be an increase of floor area of up to 1,000 square feet of a new building.
Could I make a comment?
Yeah, sure.
Considering the last discussion where we voted, the way I read this now, no site plan approval shall be required for one-family dwelling units, i.e. structures in a recreational area. If they're one-family dwelling units, you don't get a site plan
Right.
review.
Right.
So if you had a campground and you're putting in one site, one-family dwelling units, you get a site plan? It says no site plan.
But that's not,
Did I read that right? No site plan approval shall be required for one-family dwelling units.
Okay, but that's.
That has to do with
That- that's in-
residential housing.
That's residential agricultural zone only.
It doesn't, guys, it doesn't say that. It says agricultural as defined by, but before that it says one-family dwelling units.
Here.
Yep. Site plan review process isn't necessary.
So, if we're gonna put a campground in and have one-family dwelling units, there's no site plan review required.
No, the campground's gonna kick site plan review in.
Because it's
The
recreational.
project will.
Recreational zone.
Recreational zone will.
Yeah,
it's a change of use, there's all kinds of other things that would kick in the site.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Technically, he could go build a house back there on those 3 lots, 3 different houses.
And you just need.
Probably, if he has enough.
And I agree,
Right.
that clearly is
Subdivide.
allowed. That's clearly allowed without a site plan review.
Right.
As it stands right now.
That's right.
But if it was, hypothetically, if it was changed to a recreational zone,
Yes.
and then he wanted to build housing on it, that would trigger a site plan review.
Not for the housing.
Yes, because it's a change of use.
Yeah,
from
change of
Yeah,
recreation.
so the initial
Residential.
project would require a site plan review.
Yeah,
Say he starts the project hypothetically with 50
Whatever.
cabins or whatever it is, and he gets it all approved and everything else, and then he comes back and he says, I wanna put in 2 more 400 square foot unit buildings, he probably would not have to get a site plan review.
but if he was
Because
to
the
build year-round
project has
residence,
been done, and he's just adding, it's not gonna affect.
Okay, I'm not familiar with what triggers a site plan review, so I'm looking for.
A, B, or C.
Look at the bottom, he's changed the use. Once he's changed the use and got his project, he's taken a vacant lot
He's changed the use of it, he's putting up cabins, that is a project as a whole.
For instance, the recreational zone that we have now, his use is snow tubing, period, end of story. He has some existing uses, but he wants to put in a permitted use, which is the disc golf, but that's a change in use, so that triggers a new site plan review. And what this is what we're trying to decide here now is if we want to have a minor site plan use review versus a full-blown one where we're gonna make him do everything all over again for a minor change.
Which would be
Okay.
ridiculous.
Understand, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's get back to this.
I would, may I make a suggestion?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna look for this number 6. It is,
George, do you keep any records this far back that you might, because something's missing out of our discussion?
I do have records. First of all, I want to refer to the minutes here. This is in minutes, let's see, the November 12th, 2012. We went through each one of the items line by line, and I'll just get to the point. Chairman Gary Ciccarone directed the planning board in reviewing Barrington site plan regulations. The following points of discussion are in regard to including portions of the document as requirements for a site plan review. A, include items 1 through 5. B, amend item 6 to read increase of the floor area of up to 1,000 square feet. C, amend item 7 to read, and this is where the problem is with number 7, addition of up to 2,000 square feet of pavement. And item 8, replace planning board with site plan review. Okay. Then we have the motion that's accordingly.
I'm sorry, George, I think number 8, you.
I missed that?
You missed that one, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That one was also missed.
Yeah, obviously this was not done well. However, this same thing, this was just supposed to be a review. This was submitted also at the following meeting, which was 12/17/2012. This document was, and it was accepted at that time, so yes, I did miss those.
Accepted as a working document.
so let's fix it.
Yes.
Let's get together and figure out what it's gonna take to make this satisfactory. This is just,
So number 6, let me try, see if this makes sense. So let's say the case is somebody wants a new use, and they want to add 500 square feet of floor space. The new use kicks in site plan review.
Yep.
But the fact that it's under 1,000 means that they can do minor. I think that was.
perhaps, yes.
That was the intent.
That's
Right,
right.
That was the intent that we
Number
had.
6 I think that's what number 6 was allowing, was the intent to allow you to do.
I disagree with that, Mr. Chairman. The site plan review is not even kicked in until after an addition of 1,000 or more square feet
Change of use.
is to
If
be
he
done.
changes the use, if
That's-
he says.
Okay, but if
he
he's
changes
just, well, let me finish. If he's changing a building size by 500 square feet, not changing the use, but just changing the building by 500 square feet, that would not kick in a site plan review.
Right, and that was what hypothetical.
But if you put up to 1,000 square feet in the minor site plan review, now you're saying that that addition of 500 square feet would kick in a minor site plan review. It's a conflict to the original document.
No, because.
So it would be up to 1,000 square feet and change of use, not or. See, because in the original document, A, B, or C triggers a site plan review. It's got to be one or more of those uses to change it, to require a site plan review.
Well, we put it in, didn't we put this in because, say he was just adding 500 square feet, that we're not, we don't have to do a major site plan review.
You don't have to do any site plan review.
But he fits some of the other provisions of this.
Okay, but I'm just talking
That's
about
but
just
there's
square,
other
I'm
provisions
just
on it.
talking, not anything else.
Read it. So.
I did read it.
Okay.
I'm only talking about,
Where applicable, the planning board will attempt to expedite requests for site plan applications by means of an expedited minor site plan review process. It's saying that this is specifically if site plan review has been triggered, then this piece of text makes,
Right.
it becomes into play or not.
but that up to 1,000 square feet is a contradiction to the original site plan review.
Not actually, because any change in use to site or existing
Read the
buildings
second
is
half
listed
of
as a C in that, and we put
Up
that
to
in there
the-
specifically if there's an addition to it and it's under 1,000 feet, it's more expedient for them to come through.
Anything under 1,000 square feet under our current zoning does not have to go through, an addition under 1,000 square feet does not have to go through site plan review under our current zone, period, or under our current site plan review. Any addition, without, I'm not talking about a change of use, I'm not talking about anything else. If he wants to add another room, an addition to his building up there that's 999 square feet or less, it does not trigger site plan review. Only if he changes the use of that room.
Right.
Now, under the new document, we're saying up to 1,000 square feet under the minor site plan review.
Yes, but it doesn't, you don't apply those rules until you meet one of those three.
I just think it's contradicting.
So,
You understand what I'm saying, Frank? I'm sorry.
Don't look at me, look at it.
yeah, I am. I mean,
Sure, go ahead. There's only three of you.
My interpretation of this, the way it's written, is that if it is a 500-foot addition, but it triggered site plan because it's a new use, you then can make the determination if it was a minor or not, because it's only 500 feet. Even though it triggered the new use, you would then have the ability to deliberate whether it was a major or a minor, once it triggered. If it was simply a 500-foot addition and it didn't, no uses were changed, then I agree with Clifton, it wouldn't even trigger, you wouldn't even be in the minor territory because it wouldn't have triggered C. If it triggered C,
No.
No, he's
I
saying it better than any of us
understand
are. He's-
so,
So on that line there, up to 1,000 square feet, it needs to have an and there. Another issue has to be able to trigger that. Okay.
No,
That's fine, y'all don't have to agree with me, I'm just,
yeah,
Items 1 through 8 aren't triggering any, are
Yeah.
not triggering or not triggering site plan review.
Yeah.
They're triggering or not triggering whether or not it's minor.
yeah.
you gotta remember, you have to look at this
exactly.
as future people are going to interpret.
Right, there's words aside from the numbered.
It's giving the board the ability to lessen the impact of the landowner.
I know what the purpose of the
It's-
document
That's
is.
one
And
at a
it
time,
has to be
please.
triggered by A, B, or C before it would go to a minor review, where it would apply in that, and we can reduce the amount of impact on the landowner. And that was the general intent.
So if Bordeaux, hypothetically, and I'll use him because he's the only one we can think of at the moment, came in and wanted to add a storage closet for all his tubes, because he has them in an outside cover it now, but if he decided he wanted to add a giant closet to put all the tubes in the summertime, and it was 600 square feet, it wouldn't, none of this would apply.
Exactly.
It's not changing the
There's no
use.
change of use, and
And
it's
he's
under
under-
1,000 feet.
Under the 1,000 feet. But if he said, I want to add this closet because of the disc golf, to put that equipment in,
No, that would be the same, because that's a
No,
permitted
it's-
use.
No, it says
but he's
change
changing
of
it.
use.
He hasn't even come here yet. We know he's coming.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
true.
that's-
At this
that's-
point, yeah.
He's changing the use, and the use that he is adding on, the less than 1,000 square feet, is for the new use. That would say to us, can be a minor even though he's adding a building, it still may qualify for a minor site plan, because it's a minimal little structure.
Yeah. And he doesn't have to
As
do
I
the
see
full
this,
plats
I've been
and
thinking
everything
about
else.
this. The minor site plan review process, these are criteria.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yep.
He's still gonna fill out the same site plan form checklist. Certain things, the board now sets itself up to be able to waive. Some of the redundant stuff that he's already done in previous site plan review, the major one. We're not gonna force him to do a $10,000 engineering report on water quality in the retention pond, because he's building a tube shed.
In fact, it gives us legal discretion
So,
to
let me
to
finish,
lessen
please.
impact. Sorry.
So, all this is the criteria that allow minor site plan review if these things kick it in. That's the only reason. If he's doing something that doesn't kick in site plan review, then these criteria don't kick in. And increase the floor area of up to 1,000 square feet has to do with the criteria for minor site plan review after it's determined by A, B, or C whether site plan review kicks in. That's what the criteria are for. It's not a contradiction of A, B, or C, it's just the criteria that's used if A, B, or C kick in site plan review. So if it's not kicked in, because he's making a tube shed, he's not gonna have to go down and say, oh, but in here it says increase of the floor area 1,000. He didn't kick it in, according to A, B, or C. So I don't see any problem with that. But, no.
Then I would suggest in our, where it says minor site plan review, where applicable, when site plan review is required, the planning board will attempt to expedite requests for that. Because now that makes the minor site plan review subservient to the site plan review
That's a good
itself.
change.
That's a good point.
I don't think it's necessary, because it's already, if site plan review isn't required, why would he ask for it, right? To expedite requests for site plan applications.
I'm not looking for somebody who's requesting site plan review. I'm looking down the road where somebody's gonna say, oh, we have a site plan review and we have a minor site plan review, and they're separate documents. So any change of a building size, an addition size now triggers a minor site plan review, even though under our current site plan review laws.
They actually are not separate documents.
I'm just saying down
They're
the
the
road.
same checklist.
We know what we're saying.
We just don't, we would never waive all those things. It's the same checklist.
I understand what we understand and what we know what our intentions are. I'm looking 10, 15, 20 years down the road when all of us are no longer sitting on this board or gone.
But it'll still be the same checklist.
But I think that it should say, I honestly think that we should make it subservient to the site plan review by requiring where applicable when site plan review is required. Then it falls into the.
I don't have a problem with that. Does anybody else have a problem with that? We can get through this real quick by adding a phrase if nobody has a problem, because it doesn't hurt the document. Is anybody here vehemently opposed to that? I don't have a problem with it. We can get through this and fix the few things that need to be fixed, because it doesn't need substantive change at this point. We've done that 5 times already. Do we want to go there again and open this back up and put it back on the drawing board? I don't think so. It's already on the drawing board. It's a working document.
So to clarify, maybe we can get a motion, but it sounds like you're proposing to say, to replace the words where applicable
No,
with when site plan review is required.
no, I'm saying where applicable, when site plan review is required, the rest of the paragraph. I'm just saying, insert those words. When site plan review is required.
It does keep the intent of the minor site plan review
Yeah.
by doing
It does
that,
change
and does
things a
make it
little.
subservient to the
Yeah, It's just,
site plan
it's
review.
just clarifying that that's subservient to the site plan review.
But I don't think it damages it.
Not at all.
No, I'm okay.
So I would make a motion to that effect.
I would second.
We'll make the motion.
Jim seconded.
Well, we have a motion on the floor, by the way.
Oh, yes, we do.
What was the motion?
We moved to, I
Put a
moved
stress
to
on it,
accept
can't help it.
accept the document, the minor site plan review as amended. Now, during discussion, Clifton has an excellent point, and I would.
So I
like
make a
modify-
motion to amend the amendment.
I would
Wait a
like,
minute,
I would
wait a
like to
minute.
modify my motion to include Clifton's,
Either withdraw and make a new one.
okay, well, I'll withdraw I would withdraw my motion if, Rob.
So do I need to
withdraws
make my
that.
motion again?
No, he'll make your motion, unless you want to be on the record, then you withdraw your motion because it's his idea and let him do it. I don't care.
Okay.
We have other business to deal with.
I make a motion to insert the words, when site plan is required, after where is applicable,
And accept the document as amended.
and accept the document as amended.
I second.
Third.
Yes?
Did you seconded it? Okay. Any other discussion?
No.
I don't feel we need to do anything more to this in that particular place. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I didn't hear you say aye, you abstain? Did you say
I tried to. Did it come out?
aye? Okay, the motion is approved. So we're gonna add that.
Another something.
This is housekeeping, so it's, and this isn't something we have to, we can get this out of the working document stage still, because we're not doing any substantive change.
I don't know if we have to.
No.
Home-based business?
The 2,000 feet of pavement, you've got that. Impermeable surface, forget the word pavement.
Impermeable surface.
Impermeable surface, okay.
Yeah, pavements, concrete can be considered pavement, but it's also an impermeable surface. Same thing, like park on concrete.
Is there anything after number 6, or that's it?
I just leave it alone.
Okay.
It could be an existing building or a new shed. It's floor area of structure, it's not floor area of birdhouses. Although that would be a structure. Big birds.
It'd be a big bird.
What's the matter?
He had this flashing yellow bird, you know, big guy.
Now we won't be able to get it out of his head.
Mr. Chairman, I just want clarification. This vote was specifically for amending this working document. At this point, we have not decided to make this as part of the site plan review.
We have not yet.
Thank you.
It's still a working document.
So the amendments included just some reformatting to get minor site plan review to the left.
Left justify and
Let's
change
justify
font.
it. Number 7 gets impervious surface, that clause added to it. Number 8 has the
Site plan,
planning board turns into site plan.
When site plan review is required.
And then also Clifton's change where applicable and site plan review is required, whatever that was. That's, all those are in?
yes.
Okay.
Now, that's pretty hard to get done tonight.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, although I understand people want to see the changes before they approve it, but I'm going to make a motion that we accept modify the site plan review with the working document changes. Basically accept the working document.
I thought I just did that.
Yeah.
That's not what George just said.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought that was the motion.
That
Yeah,
was-
the motion was to insert
To
those
To
words
accept it
and
as
accept the
amended.
document as amended.
That's the way I voted.
what I said was,
Who made the motion, and read the motion again?
Clifton made the motion.
yes.
I seconded.
Read the motion, exit
Okay.
verbatim.
So I withdraw my motion that I started to make,
Yes,
just to be clear.
yep. Yes, Clifton Camp made a motion to amend the site plan review working document by adding the words "where applicable," after "where applicable," add the words "when site plan review is required." And then he add, along with amending the document. And the emendations would include, in number 8, deleting the word planning board and put in site plan there. Also, after number 7, after square feet, impermeable surface. And also including left justification or reformatting of the whole section under C, so that the format is directly underlined of C, A, B, and C.
And the when site plan review.
Yeah, I thought I already said that, but yes.
Oh.
Okay, he just read the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, I'm sorry, didn't we already vote on?
Yes, we did.
whatever-
Yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah, that's right, we already did.
My,
I'm-
Mr. Chairman,
Did we vote on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. Yes, we did, yes, we did. Oh,
Mr. Chairman?
good Lord.
Yeah,
It's late.
if I may clarify, I think what Mr. Collins misunderstood was where I said that this was for amending the working document. However, we did not vote on making this as part of the site plan review. In other words, moving it out of working document into the site plan review.
Okay.
That's what the issue was, I believe.
I should have got 2 cups of coffee.
So Clifton's motion
Was-
did make it part of the site plan review document.
No, sir.
No, we
Not yet.
accepted all the amendments.
That's what we did, accept the amendments, now we have to vote on whether we want to make this part of site plan review document as amended.
Okay, that's where I thought we were, and everyone said I was wrong. But, okay, I'll try again.
Go for it.
I move that we adopt the working document as amendments to the site plan review process.
Second. Any more discussion? Good. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? There it is. It's okay? It is now part of the site plan review process. We only worked on this for a month and a half.
And it's done, next.
Pretty cut and dry. Okay, we're done with that. Next item, let's get going on down the line. Town ordinance for home-based business review of document. Let's review it.
There may be copies up here. There were copies of the document we're reviewing up here at the front. I'm not sure if it's still.
Yeah, they're still here.
Thank you.
Should be.
Come on.
Accessory uses, home-based, home occupations, working document. Proposed. Now, how are we gonna set these? Are we gonna use those, keep those italicized examples?
No, no, sir.
No,
I wouldn't think so. That would
They
be
become
different.
regular print.
Those-
Regular print, I would say,
Yeah, those
that
are-
doesn't make
those are
sense to me
added.
to keep it italicized.
Yeah, those were just added last session.
Yeah, that's not good, okay, fine. I didn't know who made that point.
No.
We want to see it stay that way.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, what I've done is because the red highlights do not show up, I italicize.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
So the italicized section, when it's reformatted, we just have to make sure that it is in line with the first two paragraphs, a home occupation and home occupations. It should be at that level. It's not
Indented.
indented under number 7.
Right.
Right, it's a start of a new paragraph.
Left justified.
Yep.
Because otherwise it just applies to the sign points.
Well, it just wouldn't make any sense, right?
Would the chair entertain a motion?
I'm always entertained. Yes, would anybody, make a motion.
I would move to accept the home accessory uses, home occupations to our ordinances for presentation to warrant article with left justification of the, as Rob has mentioned.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, well, I want him to repeat that before you get to the point of order. What did you say?
I would move that we accept the working document, accessory uses, home occupation, to go forward to warrant article. That's how we're applying this, is that correct?
Okay, I got it. Now you're pointing.
With the left justification as well.
We haven't had a public hearing on this yet,
That's right.
so I think it's premature. I think the next step would be.
Hell, we already have a public hearing
That's
scheduled.
right, we set public hearing.
We already have it scheduled, that's.
Yeah, that's right, go to public.
So other than-
Happy with this?
We can't vote to place it on the ballot till after a public hearing.
Yeah, move forward to public hearing.
So we make our.
I'll amend my
That's
motion.
what, we're just tweaking this. It's still a working document until after the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
We're looking at it.
are we having a discussion on this?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
This, just to clarify to me, could the board clarify, this has nothing to do with agriculture business or homestead business, correct?
No,
Not sure what homestead.
Not agriculture.
What's homestead?
Homestead.
What's homestead? What do you mean by homestead?
Businesses run under the Homestead Act. HV 1710?
1402.
1402.
That's agricultural.
It's
That's
agricultural, yeah.
That falls under agriculture,
Yeah,
and Maple falls under
Yep,
agriculture.
Maple is, no, Maple is
Falls
on
all by
Maple.
itself.
Understood. Okay, so this does not pertain to agriculture or Maple.
right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that this pertains to accessory uses that are uses that are accessory to a residential use of the property.
Correct.
Right, so it has nothing to do with agriculture.
Nothing at all.
All right.
Agriculture is a separate
Thank you for
animal.
Or
clarifying.
maple, which I would say is under agriculture.
And that's definitely agriculture.
It stands by it on its own.
But in our zoning, that would be.
It's under 2134A.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're reviewing this to see if we want to tweak it before we have time here.
I think it's just fine.
That's it, we're ready to
Another
start
one,
going.
Yeah, I think
Done a
we
lot of
tweaked
work on it.
Well, but it's still review.
Other than left justifying the bottom of the front, of the first page.
Right, well, now that we reviewed this, the next person who received this would not have the italics anyway, right, George?
No, it would all be straightened out. When it goes on the table next week, it'll be done, and I'll look at it with him to make sure.
So this is ready for
It's ready for public hearing.
public hearing, okay.
We have a motion, we don't have a second.
I moved in, my motion would be to move the working document forward to public hearing.
We've already made that motion.
As amended.
As amended.
It doesn't need a motion to do that. That's right, and number one,
Isn't the public hearing already scheduled?
yes,
Yeah.
next week.
Okay.
We haven't,
I thought we
we
had
didn't
to move.
amend this tonight,
Just
anyway.
a chance to tweak it.
Just the type.
We made no amendments here except
Okay.
formatting the text at the bottom.
Yeah.
Unless someone has an idea.
Jim.
Oh, I'll withdraw.
We're ready to go.
This is ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure, we're all-
Ed, you're
Setbacks and
on.
farm stands.
I
We're going to
submit
see,
to you guys a proposed working document for farm stands.
have you got any more of that?
George made copies.
There's copies right there.
Everybody has them.
I haven't got one, I'm doing,
I'll make you a copy.
no, I don't have
Did I put one there?
Copy?
There was a copy that I put one there.
one. Yeah, there's one in here?
I put it afterwards.
Okay.
Ah, right here, got it. Okay, I got it, Cliff.
Now, forgive me, but this is the first time I've ever done this, so if it's
That's right.
not structured right or whatever.
You're not forgiving.
Actually, this is not the first time.
Yeah, come on.
And it wouldn't last.
Oh, I did, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. No, thank you.
Had a chance to do it?
You weren't supposed to remember that, Rob.
The mind like a steel trap. So this is, the handwritten piece, there's an Article 2A.
That's, I didn't know where it would fall into place, so when I got here, I talked with George, and that's where we would want to play.
That's not bad, Ed, I think we need to fiddle with the verbiage a little bit, but not too much.
Page-
I only
page
have
five.
basic public education.
Oh, we are.
Page 5.
Shall we read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, you're the creator, read it.
This is an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Add exception to the setback requirement for farm stand structures. I'd like to insert, except for farm stand structures of up to 200 square feet or less, in which the minimum setback shall be 10 feet from the travel way, but never closer than the stone wall or the right-of-way. I'll explain these items after I finish reading. Such structures shall be used only for the purpose of selling those goods defined as farm products which are produced on the farm. This exception will not apply where the proposed structure would reduce the sight line for entering or exiting traffic from any road or driveway to less than 200 feet. This exception shall be enacted by the permitting process of the code office. At any time the structure is found to be used for purposes other than a farm stand, it shall be moved back to the regular distance of 50 feet. That a little bit of, might seem confusion of the first paragraph there. Setback of 10 feet but never closer than the stone wall, because our rights of way vary from 35 feet up to over 100 feet on life of road. We want the people to be able to never get closer than 10 feet from the travel way, but it's against state law and our town law to store things in the right of way, which is determined by generally the stone walls or a given plot. So, is it clear enough to what the intent there is?
Got a question.
Uh-huh.
The state is what, from the center line?
Yep.
How much? 30 feet?
Everyone's different. Every road is different.
Okay. No, there's no given.
So there's no straightforward way you can just say 10 feet from the travel way. But in some cases, the travel way go right up against the stone wall, and in that case, you would have to be off the stone wall some. There are cases where you couldn't even come as close as the stone wall.
So the right-of-way is whatever the municipal requirement for right-of-way is back.
Correct.
Never close to the stone wall or municipal right-of-way might be better.
Well, we have state roads in town too, so.
Well, state and municipal
Well,
right-of-way.
just the right of way is, we cover any road.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't understand what right-of-way means. I mean,
And if they don't understand, stick in the word municipal in front of it would clarify.
it does kind of qualify it.
That doesn't matter to me, however
I mean,
you guys decide.
We had a big argument about the town hall, remember that, 52 feet, this building from the road versus, because it's 50-foot setback here,
Yeah,
and we had 48 feet,
yeah.
but we're not
Subject to that.
subject to our own zoning.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you know,
Okay.
I don't know.
So I guess I'm like probably most people, I don't know exactly what, our existing zoning says within 50 feet of the edge of the right of way. So what exactly is the edge of any right of way mean?
That's probably badly written.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think you just said the right of way could be 100 feet wide.
Right. Well, on your property, the right of way ends at your stone, at that front stone wall. So if you were to measure your structure from that stone wall, it's probably about 50 feet. That would be, the edge of that right of way would be that stone
In
wall.
most cases, in this town, there are stone walls. That's the right of way. Some cases, we do not have stone walls.
Like across the street from your house.
And
They
that,
actually built a stone wall.
that is actually determined by, you go up the road to where you have stone wall, and you go down the road to where you have stone wall, and you average it out.
Right.
That's how that's determined,
Legally.
legally.
All right.
But if somebody built a stone wall and they moved
Well,
to the edge of the right of
we
way.
have those problems in town, which you would have to argue at that point. And then you have the fact that the travel area, which is the pavement, shoulder, and ditch, is not necessarily in the very center of a right-of-way. So if you have 50 feet, and you have an 18-foot travel lane, plus a couple feet of ditches, say you had 22, 24 feet of travel way, that can meander in between those 50-foot stone walls.
Yeah.
So you don't want to obviously have
You don't want to have,
travel way.
you don't want to have travel way only. So you've got to take into account that when the travel way comes up to, and sometimes within 3 feet, 4 feet of a stone wall, then say it was 4 feet, then your structure would be 6 feet behind the stone wall. And up the street where the road, the travel way varies over, and there's 12 feet between the travel way and the stone wall, they can't tear down the stone wall and put it 2 feet into the right of way. That's what I tried to cover, because that would be putting something in the right of way.
But never closer than a stone wall or right of way. But now that we understand what stone walls and right of ways are, because I wasn't really aware of that. And that's all legal. Well,
Do we need to, would we benefit from having definitions of those?
Well, yeah, because we might want to have a definition set in there of farm products, because I know that was an issue before.
I was talking specifically
I
about
know, but I'm
travel
just,
way.
I just didn't know what a lot of those definitions were, who wanted what. But the concept here is this is an exception, a true exception,
to the
because,
50 foot.
to the 50-foot setback, because we accepted the definition of farm and farm stands, and they're called roadside stands. And with a little bit of a conflict, that 50 feet off the right of way, you don't have a roadside stand. And it would, you know, try to help farms sell stuff. But in order to qualify, that's what it needs to be used for. And I wanted to make sure there was some sort of penalty in here or meat to it, that if somebody goes, yeah, I'm building a farm stand, and they put up, and they hang a tomato out there, and it's full of, you know, their garden tractor, and their lawnmowers, and paint buckets, and everything else, or whatever, you know, it would be, no, you're not doing that.
Couple of comments.
Couple,
Well, we have the board.
excuse me.
Good.
A couple things that I would mention with this as far as the verbiage. In the second paragraph, shall be 10 feet from travel way but never closer than. I would take the out and insert a property marker such as a stone wall or right of way. That would clarify that.
It's not necessarily a property mark.
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah,
the
a
same thing.
stone wall would be, you know, you could measure off a stone wall, you're 100 feet from a stone wall to your property boundary. It's a fixed structure that's used as a marker on the property. That's the basic idea of it. Something along that, not necessarily those exact words, but something along that line which would clarify that a little bit better. And also in the third paragraph, sticks with me a little bit is, those goods defined as farm products, which are produced on the farm.
Yep.
I would like to see something more like, those goods defined as farm products in accordance with RSA 2134A, which, that provides for people to bring in, let's say, if I had a farm stand and he wanted to sell his eggs at my farm stand, he could do that, and this may fog that a bit, that word, even though we couldn't
If
supersede
that's
the
what
state
the
law.
board wants.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a discussion on buying products and value added, you know, you buy in blueberries, because I don't have a blueberry orchard, but I make blueberry pies. You know, there was an argument, well, blueberries weren't raised on the farm.
Well, that's
Doesn't matter, they were raised on a farm somewhere.
Yeah,
Right, but-
and that falls
But
under
that's why we
putting,
talked about that.
But you're not, and see, the difference is you're buying into the raw material and making a
Right,
product.
You're value adding.
Right,
but
but you're not buying the pies directly in and then selling the pies.
yeah, if you have a farm, that falls within the percentage of what you need to produce from your farm for sale at a farm stand. And with.
Yeah, and I think it was 30% of it could come off the farm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's fine with me,
and-
I
and-
just didn't have the RSA in my head, and I,
Yeah, with that, you can get the blueberries and then make a pie.
All right, you got a contribution here too?
Yeah,
Shoot it.
okay. So I suggest that we strike the sentence, such structure shall be used only for, just eliminate that. Our zoning ordinance already has a definition of farm stand, and it reads, as defined in RSA 2134A. Farm stand is defined there, and it says what you can and can't sell
okay,
there.
that's fine.
And I think that we maybe just simplify things by just making, you know, so basically, you know, follow the links, but they have to go and read what a farm stand is. But if they've got a farm stand, they should be familiar with 2134A anyway. And I think that would help simplify it. And so on that point, I think it just helps, rather than trying to fight about what the wording should be, I think we can just get rid of the word, I guess, on that piece.
Get rid of the whole paragraph,
The
as you suggested.
Such structures
Yeah,
shall
such
only be
structures.
used in the building, okay. Okay.
We striking the whole sentence?
Yeah, that's my proposal, is to strike the whole sentence.
Are you making an amendment or just making a proposal?
Well, we
Oh, we're not even
have,
making this.
we haven't
I'm gonna
accepted,
make a motion. This is going to be, I make a move that we accept this as a working document. Let's go there. Any more discussion on that? No. Okay, we have- Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Accept-
I move that we strike the such structure shall paragraph from the working document. Because it's subsumed by the farm stand definition that already exists in the, zoning ordinance.
We have a motion.
I second it.
Any other discussion about that particular thing? Such structure would be, it's a point well taken. Do we want to put 2134A in there?
No,
Yeah, I think it's always good to reference RSA's if
Yeah,
they,
somewhere.
clear and apply.
2134 is already referred to.
Okay, hold on, we'll get
Still pass up,
we'll
we
get
have
some
a
audience
chance.
participation in a second. Somebody's making a motion, is it?
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second, we're on to
We're in the
discussion.
discussion phase.
So we're in the discussion phase. Okay, there we go. Let's let the public in on this one.
I just have two comments. You want to address parking or how you pull off the road. And it's my opinion that once a structure's placed and there for a good number of years, you're not moving it. So if you let something get close to the road and they change it after X number of years, you're not gonna move it.
What are you saying?
The 50-foot, you're not gonna get the last paragraph. If they change it to something else, after X number of years, you're not gonna get them to move it back.
We actually.
Actually, it
Actually,
says anytime the
it's
structure,
happened
We
in
made
the
the
town.
tapper do
this
this.
right.
ordinance says at the end, anytime the structure is found to be used for purposes other than farm stand,
He had to pick
it
up
shall
the
be
whole
moved
building and
back
move
to
it
the
back
regular
20
distance of
feet.
50 feet.
How long was it there? Was it there
It's been there a while.
a substantial amount of time?
A couple of years.
Like 20 years?
No, a couple of years.
A couple of years, you'll get away with it. If you put something close to the road and use it for a good long time, you're not moving it. Trust me on that one.
20 years from now, I won't be sitting here.
I understand, but somebody else will be worried about it.
Right.
The specific comment to the motion you've currently got in front of you is if you strike that paragraph, I suggest you capitalize farm stand in the very first paragraph, because then that will trigger somebody to look at the definitions. Because when you have capitalized words, it means it's defined somewhere in the document, and then that would trigger the link to 3021 and 34A. So in the very first sentence, I would say you capitalize farm stand, because then you're saying, look at the definition for what we're saying.
And you can also say it's described in 2134A, which is another kick in the right direction.
You
How
got-
about that?
You got Eddie's example of a swale, the right of way, a swale, and a structure 10 feet from the right of way, where do you park? Structure's
Right in the
back,
middle of the road.
that's right. That's right.
It's a farm stand, it's a roadside farm stand.
All
You
right.
park in the ditch.
yeah,
That's all right.
just don't get
As
stuck.
long as all four tires are off the pavement, it's legal.
There's something to consider.
I don't have the answer to that.
Oh, I don't either.
I thought about it. What little bit we've had in this town, people are conscious about that. There are instances where I think they would be in the driveway, or close to the driveway, and people are going, and they're gonna pull in somebody's driveway, jump out, grab a few things, back out, take off.
We do have a motion on the floor for discussion.
We have a motion on the floor? Read it, George, please. Thank you.
Rob Collins made a motion to delete the third paragraph that states such structure shall be used for, et cetera. And the second one was Clifton Camp.
And we have discussion. Anybody else? All in favor of removing that sentence?
All right,
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Gratchen.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we capitalize farm and stand in the sentence except for farm stand structures.
Second.
Can I amend that?
just, yeah,
You can move, you make any kind of motion.
I
You
move
can
that
reject it.
we write except for farm stand as described in 2134A. Capitalized farm stand as described in 2134A.
So I would not do that because it sounds like we don't, that it's a different kind of farm stand than we have in our definitions, even though it's defined the same way. I mean, I think that by capitalizing it, you're asking people to go look at the definitions. And,
And do we have farm stand in our regulation?
yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
As defined in 2134A, is exactly.
Well,
what it
then,
says.
Well, the
so-
as defined
What is our
would point-
definition of farm stand, excuse me?
As defined in 2134A,
That's our definition?
Yes.
exact quote.
Yeah. And we
So
don't
we
have to
should say,
capitalize.
so, excuse me, so we should say that, in your opinion, that saying 2134A twice is redundant and confusing.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we say as defined
In Article 10.
in our ordinance?
Sure.
Let's say that, then, that works, because then they'll find 2134A. As defined,
In Article 10. I think it's Article 10.
as defined. Yes, well, we can do that.
Okay,
Why very
As defined in Article 10?
I'm just double checking.
Yeah, check it, Rob, you're the quick checker.
okay, Mr. Chairman, where would that phrase be added as defined in
It
Article?
would be except for farm stand, FARM, capital F, capital S, structures.
Yes.
After structures,
Capitalize the whole word, don't you?
capitalize farm, well, yeah, capitalize the whole word, farm and stand. That's what I meant to say, and then I stopped. Farm stand structures as, and think this one, Rob, I mean, who made the motion?
My motion was capital F,
And I'm amending it, that's right.
capital S.
But where did you make the motion to be in between? Because I'm just amending what you said.
My motion was to capitalize the word farm,
Oh.
and capitalize the word stand, just initial caps on those words. That was my motion.
Okay. Then why don't you finish your motion, I'll make another one.
Okay, we have a
Okay.
second from,
Wait a second.
Yes, we did, me.
Oh, okay, good. All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Abstentions? None. Okay, I would like to move that after the word farm stand structures, as described in Article 10.
Can I suggest
Of our zoning
defined rather than described?
Pardon me?
Defined.
Defined, that's what I wrote. My eyes are tired. I wrote defined, but I'm scribbling. As defined in Article 10. In between structures of.
Okay.
You want to second
no, I
I
don't,
made a movement.
it? I'll second it.
okay.
Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Done.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman? Earlier today, Mr. Nason asked me to write in Article 2A, because I had found in the zoning ordinance where this should go, but I made a mistake, I realized, and if somebody could verify this so that I won't make a mistake again like I have been, Article 2, it should read Article 2A 3D.
3D?
Yes.
All right, let's change that on top, everybody.
Move to amend.
Second.
Discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Done.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we change the wording around the 200 square feet to read of up to 200 square feet, removing or less. That's just more consistent with the wording in our zoning in general.
Of up to 200 square feet.
Yes, rather than 250 square feet or less, just changing the sort of the sense of that. I mean,
Why do we need the or less? I can't understand that.
Well, that says the same thing, but
My-
words got
My
words.
proposal is to remove the words or less,
Oh,
add the words up to.
oh, yeah, okay,
Sorry.
okay.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on that.
Okay.
That was my proposal, was to remove the or less. and change
Okay.
it to up to.
You make a motion, right?
Second.
Who seconded? Of up to 200 square feet instead of putting or less in there.
It's more consistent with the way the rest of the ordinances are worded.
Right here, just up to, from 200, and remove or less.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the guy.
Nope, I'm still on the first sentence, sorry.
Farm stand, so it'll read, except for farm stand structures as defined in Article 10 of,
Up to 200 square feet in which the minimum setback shall be. So removing the two words or less, adding the two words up to. Doesn't change the sense of it at all, just.
That's a motion, and you seconded it, Jim?
Yes.
Any other discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? That's there.
Good job.
And we're not doing the next, we're deleting that. We've already done that already. The fourth one is pretty sensible. What's the state say about those things, Ed? Is that where you pulled this from?
What's that? No, I pulled this
State
out.
policy? What are line of sight policies?
Well, that, as a general rule, it's 200 feet. I mean,
That's what it is.
and it escalates depending on the class of road.
Yeah, the speeds and the.
Yeah, and we have class 5 roads, so 200 feet is adequate.
Yeah.
So Ed, this says you,
Mhm.
it says you can't put it next to your driveway?
You have to have line of sight from the end
Well, it
of your
says you have
driveway.
to have it not,
It says,
Two.
so.
this exception will not apply to a structure that will reduce the sight line for entering or exiting the traffic of any road or driveway to less than 200 feet.
So I-
So you can't put, if you chose to put it on the corner of your driveway,
Yes.
and you had, by other definitions, the ability to set it 10 feet from the travel way, but let's just say your driveway came here and the road turned this way, and by setting it there, you couldn't pull up and see 200 feet down the road before you took off, then it wouldn't be allowed.
So it's generally, just to clarify, it would generally be allowed if the road is straight, because
Straight or
Because it's-
curved the other
because it
way.
will, the structure has to be 10 feet away. You can pull up to that,
The edge of the road.
that 10 feet will allow you to see past it down normal road.
It'd be similar to that property across from the prior Belknap Farm, where the
His
driveway comes out
exactly.
on that corner, and that would
The
stop
inside
him
of
from
the
seeing oncoming traffic.
Right, that's something.
Now, more importantly, I like the way it's written, because it says any road or driveway, so it's not just your own driveway, it's you can't block your neighbor's line of sight either.
Right.
Even
Yeah,
if you
I think it's-
don't-
I
even
think
if
it's
they
Those
don't
two
do-
driveways,
I think it's written very well.
30 feet apart,
I think it's fine.
You know, that,
I don't see any reason to change any of that. Does anybody else?
No.
Because we're not doing anything. Okay, let's go to the next one. This exception shall be enacted by the permitting process of the code office, meaning yourself.
I mean, the person
The code
just doesn't,
officer?
just doesn't go and do it, they gotta obviously get a building permit, and that doesn't mean they necessarily get the exception until the code officer goes out and makes sure that they're 10 feet off the travel way, or no closer than the stone wall or right of way, or does not obstruct the 200-foot sight line.
So clarification on the word enacted, should that be administered or some other, enacted sounds, I mean, this, I would think this would be enacted by the voters by voting for this. I
You know,
mean,
the exceptions, once it was accepted by the town, or,
right, is enacted, my
Oh,
guess,
I don't
is
know.
enacted the right.
I'm not a registered,
What do you mean?
Permitted?
the process,
Approved.
that is not automatic. You, just like we had the minor subdivision, the minor site plan.
I know what he's, I know what he's trying to say.
No, not just everybody can.
It's a good word, Rob.
Administered?
Approved isn't a bad word.
This exception shall be administered or,
Approved by the permitting process of the code office. Approved is kind of word.
All farm stands, or all structures used as farm stands will go through the permitting process and be approved by the code enforcement, by the select board, or their designated code enforcement officer.
Why do we have to be that
I was
verbose?
gonna say.
Why can't we just say this exception?
Because it's not an exception.
Well, if it's not
That's what I'm
exception,
at.
this,
Because once this is enacted into the zoning ordinance, it's just like building a house.
farm
It has to go
stands
through a permitting process.
shall be erected
Subject
By
to the
approval
permitting process.
of the building permit process.
That's fine.
Farm stands shall be erected by approval of the building permit
How
process.
about placement of a farm stand?
All right, placement of a farm, that's just as good.
Like movable farm stands also that are on wheels, you talked about that?
No, because they're not,
It says farm stands,
I would
structures on wheels you can move.
Farm stands as defined by Article 10.
But that includes movable and non-movable ones.
Just point it out.
I would think
all
that,
farm stand structures or permanent farm stand structures
Yeah.
will be regulated by the permitting process.
I wouldn't agree with all farm stand
I
structures.
said,
I would
I said
keep this-
permanent.
Yeah.
I said permanent. I
Yeah.
added the word permanent.
I would keep this as an exemption, because an exemption to current.
It's not an
current-
exemption though.
If you have all farm stand structures, the current structures would be up for a code, or if you're 50 foot on your setback for a farm stand, you could be, subject to code enforcement decision if you're well within.
If it's a
codes.
permanent structure, you are.
Yeah, but,
If it's already up, you're not.
No, but if it's
No.
a permanent structure and it's already up, then this is a moot point.
Yeah.
but
This is
you're
for
allowed.
all
you're
new
allowed-
permanent structures.
Yeah. But if you have a temporary farm stand that you're putting up, you have to meet these same requirements. You'd have to go through code enforcement if you use that as all farm stands. Like if you're putting up a farm stand that's on.
But what are you
within
saying,
10
that
feet of the
temporary farm
right-of-way.
stand should be able to fall apart while you're
I
standing in the middle of that?
would keep this as an exemption, where you're changing it from the current ordinance as far as positioning
But
of
it's
the
not
farm.
an
There's no current
exemption.
ordinance.
Once it becomes an ordinance, once it becomes a zoning ordinance, it's no longer an exemption. It's part of the ordinance.
Well, if
It's no longer, you don't have to go to the ZBA to get an exception to do this, once this becomes, right now, if you wanted to do this, and you wanted to put it off of 10 feet off the roadway, you would have to go and apply to the ZBA for the exception.
But-
That's how that process would work. Once we make this a zoning ordinance, it would fall under our building permit process for all permanent structures, whether it be a shed, a farm stand, or anything. The only, hang on, the only difference is that farm stands would now be allowed to be closer than the 50-foot setback from the front road.
I would argue that this would be similar to minor site plan review, being subservient to the current ordinance.
That's the way I.
That's, yeah.
That there would be probably a fair percentage that would not be allowed.
Yes. But if you have a farm stand that's 50 foot back,
Right.
you shouldn't have a problem with it, where you wouldn't have to be, have the requirements of.
But it still has to, if it's a permanent structure, it still has to go.
Yeah,
through
it's gotta go through the permitting
process.
process.
But this is for permanent or temporary structures, am I correct? This is what you're intending this
And
for?
that's my point, if this is good for permanent structures for the well-being of the community, it should also be applicable to temporary ones.
Yeah. It may be a shed you put up, but
And move- on
that's
wheels, move
10
it
feet
down.
from the right-of-way, but you can see 200 feet down the road.
So,
What
But
shed?
if
A
you-
shed, any size shed is still subject to our zoning ordinance in setbacks.
Go ahead, Rob, I got a question here, what about something you buy at Home Credo? It's a shed.
It's still
Considered permanent.
a permitted process.
So what's the code officer gonna come out and make sure that the floor structure is not?
No, that it's within the
To deal with
setbacks.
placement. This is
Placement,
setback.
oh, okay, then it
This
doesn't
is
really
the
matter.
placement of it.
Well, we're dealing with that in every one of these things almost, so.
That's what I'm saying, if this passes as a zoning ordinance, amendment to the zoning ordinance, it now becomes a zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, it's not gonna be an exception anymore, it'll be a zoning ordinance.
Okay, Rob.
So regarding farm stands in general, right, when we put our farm stand, it's a blue cooler with a white lid that's this tall, right? It's not gonna block anyone's view, not even the shortest person in the world, right? So, I mean, do we wanna, now we could say that we want that to be 10 feet back. I don't think that's necessary for public safety.
I don't think the
Right,
cooler, is that what?
It's a farm
A
stand.
farm stand, anything that,
But it's not-
anything
it's
that
not-
Is
houses.
that what Article 10 says? What's Article 10 say? 2134A. Does 2134A say that a styrofoam cooler is a farm stand? I don't
Yes.
think so.
Yes, absolutely does. It allows me, it gives me the right to sell crap up the side of the road.
But is it, I mean, we're splitting hairs here, but
What if
I
you
thought
could
you
just,
sold
does it describe a 3-foot-long styrofoam cooler as a farm stand?
No, it just says that it's a use that normally wouldn't be allowed in
What-
most places in the state.
I have a-
Most places in the state, you can't just sell crap at the side of the road.
here's
Right?
a
They want to make it so that
curveball.
agriculture can be sold at the side of the road.
Oh, Jesus.
Here's a curveball we really
I
need.
understand
What if
that,
you can
but-
disassemble it and
Still a
store
structure.
it away?
Still a structure.
Still be applied as a structure under
And
the
this is looking
zoning.
at structures,
But,
which would be temporary or permanent.
mhm.
I think we would have a problem, and I'm not sure, but I think we'd have a problem with ones on wheels, because that would fall under
That'd
the
be-
traffic regulations of parking.
You know, then you'd have to get it registered.
Well, right.
How do you mean problem?
I don't think we could enforce ones on wheels, because if somebody had a trailer and they decided, hypothetically, they decided, you know, my field across town, I'm gonna just hook my trailer on, I'm gonna go load it up, and then I'm gonna drive it back and park it beside my road. That would be a traffic issue, because that's not a structure.
Right.
But if it's placed on your property, it's out of right away, it
This
wouldn't
is dealing
fall.
with structures.
Yeah,
It's
but
no
that
different
same,
than parking a motorhome next to the road. A person has a right to park it there as long as it's not a.
but if they're parking it there on a regular basis and it's off the road, so it wouldn't be under the purview of the Wakefield Police Department, but it's on wheels, so it's not a structure.
Anything inside the right of way,
But if it's on your property and 10-foot back, but you don't have 200-foot clear view down the road as it's provisioned in here.
every demonstration.
Except
makes
this
that.
here
That's,
says,
exactly, yeah.
this here says, except for farm stand structures. And I don't think you can confuse a trailer with a structure. I think they're two separate entities.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I don't know where the enforcement would come,
Thanks
other than calling it
for
the.
coming.
You're welcome, but you all want to make another comment. If you're doing this for the safety of people, the structures, then you should include, I think, stuff on wheels that's selling.
But I don't know if we legally can, if it's a registered vehicle. I think our recourse would be to call the police and say, you know, Joe Schmo is parking his trailer every day on the corner, and I can't see around it.
There you go.
That's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think the town,
We can't regulate the parking of a trailer on somebody's personal
On a
property.
registered vehicle,
Let's-
yeah.
As
But
long
the
as
police
it's a
can come and
registered
make you get it out of the
vehicle.
site.
Vehicle.
Let's keep this simple. We're talking about farm stand structures, and they're
Right.
subject to the permit process.
We're not
Just
talking-
put that in and move on.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we remove the paragraph that says, "This exception shall be enacted by the permitting process of the code office." By having this as part of our zoning, this is something that Eddie or the code officer has to enforce anyway. As part of, he's enforcing every other part of the section, right? And he can advise the person, and if the person doesn't need a building,
If it's a permanent structure, he needs a building permit.
right,
Right.
if he doesn't need it because it's not permanent enough, then it's easy to be moved in case it is blocking sight lines and it is causing a hazard. And it's not, no skin off the,
Are you talking about the second to the last one?
Yeah.
I'm saying just scratch the whole thing. It's sort of,
I'll second
Goes
that
with the
motion.
Second.
I'm thinking.
we have a second. so-
My brain's going slow. It's 9 o'clock. It's been a long day. We started at 4
I have
a.m.
some discussion, just because I.
All right, okay.
I don't have a
There was
problem with
there was a motion and a second.
Right.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with removing that, as long as everybody feels that there is some authority to say to somebody, no, you can't put it there because it blocks the site. Or, yeah, you may think you own out to the edge of the tar, because there's no stone wall, but when you built your house and you tore it down, the wall was there, because see, it's over there and it's over there. There has to be some meat to be able to say no.
Well,
We're covered.
right, I think we're covered.
And if we're covered, then. let's-
yeah, because right above it, it says this will not apply where proposed structures would reduce the sightline. I think that you need to get rid of that word exception out of that, though.
The whole thing's gone.
No, the line up above, it says this exception will not be.
Let's deal with the one.
Right, we have
Right, so the line of sight issue is covered in the line up above that one line. So the enforcement is there by code enforcement, it is a permanent structure, it has to go through the building permit process. So the building inspector would have to approve it, just like anything else, that's a permanent structure.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Except, I don't even think of the word. Abstentions. That passes.
Mr. Chairman,
Hey, excuse me. I stop right now. We're done, unless somebody wants to move that we continue the discussion on.
Chairman, I move that we continue the discussion. We have a public hearing on this.
I'm not
next week.
arguing the point, but I'm following our rules of
Second, for the
procedure.
sake of discussion,
Okay,
I think our rule says it don't go beyond that for any new business, if you're in the middle of something.
okay, that may be, it's late.
So,
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that, on the sentence that starts with "this exception will not apply," I move that we strike the words "this exception will not apply where the proposed," and insert in place of that, "no farm stand," and so it will read, "no farm stand structure." Actually, I guess we gotta change the word "would" as well. Change would to "may." Sorry, George, I apologize for this. The intent here is to have it read, "no farm stand structure may reduce the sight line for entering or exiting traffic of any road or driveway to less than 200 feet."
that makes sense.
That's good.
Second.
There's an motion, is it?
Yeah, so just to repeat it, yes, it's a motion. Change the,
how about reading it as proposed?
yes, I'm talking about the one that starts with "this exception will not apply." So I propose that we change it to, that whole section, be changed to "no farm stand structure may reduce the sight line for entering and exiting traffic of any road or driveway to less than 200 feet."
It works. Second.
Second.
It's been seconded.
Who seconded it?
Cliff.
Okay, good.
Oh, wow,
Then
we'll move it.
I'll withdraw my second. I'll third it.
Call the question.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? That's what it reads.
Got all this, George?
Yes, I do.
Let's attack the last one.
So I don't have proposed wording for this, but here's my concern. Just because, so it's worded as if you start to use it for something else, it has to be torn down or removed or something like that. What if somebody just abandons it and stops selling stuff from it?
I think.
You could add
I
the word,
thought of that.
you could add that word at any time the structure is found to be abandoned or used for purposes other than a farm stand, it shall be moved back to the regular distance of 50 feet. And abandonment is not used for more than 1 year. 1 year it's in the RSA's. Abandonment is 1 year or more of non-use.
I don't agree, because I thought of that.
I'd like to understand what your thoughts are.
So you have me, 25 years from now, and I have built my farm up, and I've just got to the point where I can no longer do the gardening and whatnot, and it just so happens, they've all decided they're gonna try something else, and then one of them decides they want the farm, and they come back. I think there should be some leeway, is if
I
if it's vacant, let it stay. So that the potential, because technically it's a farm that it's on.
Right.
Let it be vacant, so that when the next person comes along and says, oh, I wanna buy a farm, look, it's got a farm stand. We can do this and that, and they don't have to go through the process.
It's already passed code, so.
Right, so you're just saying,
It's just when they change it,
if
when somebody comes along
the
and buys
change
it,
of
goes,
use,
I'm gonna store my widgets in there, and I'm gonna do this and that,
Or I saw my antiques out of there.
or sell antiques out of there.
they'd have to go to the ZBA for an exception.
Yeah.
No, I understand the non-abandonment thing, so leave the words abandoned out, and leave just any change of use from a farm stand would require that the building be set back to the 50-foot setback requirement.
Well,
That's just.
come up with language, make a motion. Hello, Frank?
Just on this sentence, I suggest that the board might want to consider, rather than the language that currently says move back the regular distance of 50 feet, it's just move back to the current setback, their
Right, but
setbacks.
if it
Because
does
the
change.
50-foot could change at some point in time. And by the general practices to make it so you don't have to change 50 feet in 20 different places in the document.
I don't see why you don't write it this way.
Oh,
The structure shall not be used for purposes other than a farm stand.
Then if they do, what do you do about it?
You don't take it down. This is
I
strictly for
don't
farm.
think you'll have meat
Uh,
to do that.
We could put it in
Or-
for, it would have to meet requirements for other buildings.
Anytime the
But it could be
structure,
removed.
anytime the state law.
Anytime the structure is found to be used for any purpose.
Too many words.
Oh, it's
All
fine.
right, hang on, listen to this.
I was in the middle.
Anytime the structure is found to be used for any purpose other than a farm stand, it shall be required to be set back required to,
The farm
it shall
stand,
be, it shall be
Required,
moved to required, non-farm stand setbacks.
the
required,
stand may not be used.
to meet required, ordinance or required, now I'm messing up, I just had it. Move to parameters of zoning requirements for other buildings.
Regular zoning. My concern
I
was,
lost it, just,
my concern was just the opposite of leaving it there vacant.
yeah.
Instead of leaving it vacant, if somebody started a farm and did a farm stand and they found after a year that, well, this thing isn't really for me, but yet they grew garden stuff for themselves and everything else, and then they go, what am I gonna do with that structure? Well, I think I'll do this with it. So even though that it might be in the same family, it may change uses. That's why if it's found at any time, doesn't mean different owner, could be the same owner that.
Yeah, anytime the
somebody goes,
structure
I'm
is
gonna
found
sell,
to be
for one
used.
summer, I'm gonna sell a couple of daisies I find on the side of the road so I can get this structure.
As an antique store. In fact, not even a couple, it might be one day, and then they say, we've met the requirements, now it's an antique store.
Well, that was my concern.
So, I think this should be in there, just my only suggestion
Yeah,
is.
anytime the structure is found to be used for any purpose.
The farm stand may not be used for other purposes without moving it back
Required
to
setbacks.
required, well, let's think of,
Present zoning setbacks.
present zoning setback.
Must meet present zoning.
Current zoning setback.
Current zoning setbacks.
Or applicable, right, because it might mean applicable setbacks,
Well, that would be applicable.
not if it's not a farm stand.
I'm just trying to tell you.
Good one.
So it should be, the farm stand may not be used for other purposes without moving it back to applicable zoning setbacks.
I thought we were gonna do if, at any time, if the
Give me a
structure.
comment.
No, I like that. I've got one more, but I'll hold it for the next thing. This sounds good. Current applicable setbacks is, I think, a good way to say it.
Must
Yes.
be current zoning
Current
setback.
applicable setbacks.
Because I'm gonna talk,
Is any of this gonna motion?
Well, we're about to, okay, I make a motion. The farm stand may not be used for other purposes without moving it to current applicable setbacks, zoning setbacks. That's the motion. The stand may not be used for other purposes without moving it back to current applicable zoning setbacks.
Sounds okay to me.
It's
So
short,
is it the
succinct, it says it,
The farm stand or the farm stand structure?
the farm stand.
Okay, because everywhere else here it says farm stand structure in this piece.
Well, if you feel it's necessary to throw the
Yeah,
word
I'll
structure in
stand
there.
structure.
We are talking about structures here, we're not talking about movable ones.
Are you sure?
I'll second that, George, because nobody else has.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Why don't you tweak it again? Go ahead.
No, this discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? That's it? Frank?
The one other thing you might want to consider is that this is obviously talking about the front setback. It's not referring to the side setbacks. And so you might want to say in that first sentence, the front setback because then it would still, the side setbacks would still have the what is it, the
40 foot.
40 feet from the side.
Yeah.
That way you couldn't put a farm stand right up against your neighbor's line. By just saying the front setback, because that's how I think it's defined in the zoning ordinance, it's clear that this exception is only, this is only applying to the front setback, not necessarily the side setback.
That's a good point.
Is there a case though? Is there a case? where-
I don't think as far as a farm stand, that should really apply as long as it's not obstructing the neighbor's view. If you're
As long as
10
they're not
feet,
doing the
if
200
you put it in the corner and
I
you're 10
just
feet
think-
from either boundary, and you're not obstructing the view.
Because it'll come up.
Right, so
Yeah.
my concern only would be, are there lots in this town, would we be depriving somebody of all of the reasons to be able to put a farm stand up, other than they didn't meet 40, 80, is there a non-conforming lot that is allowed?
And if there were, such as the small lot up on the second lot of, what's their names, up on Tuttle Hill Road, that's a very small, that doesn't have very much frontage. Just above, not Cecil and not Mary Lou, but the next one up.
Tibbetts,
Tibbetts Hill, yeah, that's not, doesn't have very much frontage on that lot.
How many,
However, they could go to the ZBA and ask for an exception
Right.
in that case.
how many string beans are you gonna raise on a postage
Yeah,
stamp?
you're right, too.
But
But
if you
that-
have an adjacent lot, because our
Right.
ordinance says
Well, then you don't have a setback problem with your.
they do, because a lot's a lot.
Yeah.
In our, if you own two adjacent lots, you still have to honor the line down the center for your structures of our existing codes.
My answer is there's only probably very few, and they could go to the ZBA and ask for an exception for the side setback.
I would lean toward keeping the side setbacks as is,
Yeah.
because
That's fine.
I don't, I wouldn't, not that it's gonna help with my neighbors, but it's, it's not near me, my sides are not near me, but, somebody who's, doesn't have a lot of space, that 40-foot buffer from the neighbor could be important to them. And like you said, they can go to the ZBA and get a variance if it comes up,
Yeah.
and that's a good issue for them, their neighbors are okay with it.
And it would be probably something they could ask for a variance if in fact they had a non-conforming lot and they didn't have enough space. It would probably trigger the ability for them to get a variance. So what you would do is just change that first sentence to say, in which the minimum front setback shall be.
Current applicable front setback.
So the word front setback isn't used.
What is
The
it?
existing zoning says, no structure or part thereof shall be placed within 40 feet of the side and rear lot lines, or within 50 feet of the edge of any right-of-way, or within 75 feet of any pond, lake, stream, brook, watercourse, marsh, or seasonally wet area.
So this might already be only
It's
applying itself.
50 feet from the right-of-way, and I think that Eddie already captured that with 10 feet from the travel lane.
Then I'm sorry I brought it up. These wanted,
No, it's worth
somebody brings
listening.
up a public hearing, you can talk about it.
Yeah, it's worth us thinking about.
Then we'd have to have another public hearing if we could change it.
Only if we did a change, a substantial,
That's what I said, if we
substantial
change it.
change.
After the first vote.
Yeah,
And we might, somebody might
conceivable.
convince us that we should change it.
Only if it's a substantial.
Well, we have made changes here. George is gonna put them together, and he's gonna email them to us all. And we can look at our changes and see it all together instead of scribbled. And the hearing is next Monday. Yeah, we scheduled it for next Monday. So, there we are.
See you
We have
next
a
Monday.
triple hearing. Huh?
See you next Monday.
Next Monday. Are we all satisfied with the results here? Do we,
Yes.
anything more to go over on this?
No.
Okay, agenda, come back.
Good job.
Okay, yeah, it is it, good job. Member comments other than this?
Good job.
The SRPC will be giving us a bill as well.
Go ahead, member comment.
I would just like to state that I would like the record reflecting that I abstained by protest to the earlier vote.
Oh,
The warrant article.
Yep, for the petition warrant article vote, I abstained by protest.
okay. Any other member comments? You know, member, go ahead. Yeah, Ed, you get
Just
first.
saying, the SRPC will be sending us a bill. I hope everybody got it.
For the books. We'll send them a check, I guess. Huh?
Do we have any more? I didn't get one.
You didn't get the book? You got any left over?
There should be.
George is gonna steer it away.
He's
Right,
hiding.
I'll walk
You
away.
had, back there,
It should be paid for 10.
Frank?
The public comment? Will you accept a public comment?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ted, throw it from you,
I-
and here I'd say,
I
that's
would
what
like
we
to-
got.
I would just like to say that the public hearing that was held last week was done very well. I want to compliment the chairman on how he managed the large crowd full of people. He did a very good
Thanks.
job.
Kept the hostilities to a minimum.
He did a very good job of moving the issue through and giving everybody a chance to speak. It was very well run.
And he's adorable, too.
Hey, careful, the camera's on.
I'm sorry. Can't help myself sometimes.
Court adjourned. Meeting adjourned. Well, I don't sit down all day, so this isn't so bad. I sit down all day.
Nice stuff.
Are we all slap happy yet?
Huh?
Are we all slap happy yet?
I'm not sweating.
Date for the day. That's the long one.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.